Welcome to Classic Trials. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we make sense of the law one bite at a time. In this series, we observe and analyze the play-by-play of some of the biggest trials that have shaped the public consciousness of the American judicial system. In this season, we're working our way through the case of California v. Erik and Lyle Menendez. Growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, and then Beverly Hills, California, these young men had everything they could ever want, or so it seemed, until one night on August 20th, 1989, they approached Jose and Kitty Menendez with newly purchased shotguns. Put on trial for murdering their own parents, they claimed self-defense, arguing they were terrorized in their own home by abusive parents until they could take no more. Which argument is more convincing? Come join and see for yourself. Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon. Okay, there we go. Now it should work. Of course. I did the thing. Where I move the mic and it moves the wire. And then and then it all goes out and I have to fix it. So, that may have been the fastest that I've ever done that during a live stream. So, all that said, how was your weekend? I had a great weekend. I had a lovely time. Mr. Bites and I decided to spend the Thanksgiving weekend in London. So if you saw on Twitter or on Instagram, I posted a lot of photos to my Instagram stories yesterday just from the entire weekend. So we had so much fun. We saw tons of stuff. We walked like 30,000 steps a day. And it was so much fun. I think one of my favorite things was seeing the Winston Churchill sort of underground bunker museum, which is right by Downing Street. Really, really, really cool stuff to see what things were like during World War II, some of the precautions that they were doing, all this kind of stuff. So, and of course, seeing all of the lovely sort of Christmas cheer everywhere around London. It was just lovely, 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 lovely. I loved it. So, okay, let's say hi to some folks in the chat. Brittany Chanel says, good morning from Illinois. Bronwyn W says, good morning from Utah. This is literally the highlight of my Mondays. Thanks, Alita. I'm so glad. I'm really glad that you're enjoying it as much as I am. And hi from Utah. Living life with and singing songs with Mallory says, hello from cold Utah. Might get snow today. Well, hello. I hope you're keeping warm and cozy. Melissa Simok says, good morning, or Simok or Simok. Good morning from West Hollywood. Good morning. Ryan K. Hi from Maryland. Hello. And all right. So, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving weekend if you're Americans or in the United States and celebrating. And otherwise, I hope you had a wonderful weekend getting ready for the Christmas holidays, because that's fun too, because now we're officially in it, right? Like you don't have to hide your Christmas cheer from anyone by like secretly listening to Christmas music if that's your style. But yeah. B and Mandy T, hello from Canada. Hi, good to see you. So, okay, so today we've got more Menendez Brothers trial. Last week we saw Perry Berman. He was a tennis coach who sounds like he wanted to go Hollywood when he moved to LA. Like he knew the family when they were in New Jersey, and then they moved to LA. And he moved sometime after them. And then he was like the tennis coach again. There really wasn't too much that was like particularly, I don't know, like compelling about his testimony. I mean, other than to talk about, it's showing it's unlisted. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I totally meant to fix that. Give me 1 second here. That is what is happening here. Okay. Save changes. Now it should be. Thank you so much, Robbie Dobby, because that is something that I totally meant to fix. And I'm still in Thanksgiving weekend brain fart madness. Okay, that was my bad. Okay. Anyway, now that we're all back in it, thank you so much for letting me know about that. And so now it should be public for everybody and not just unlisted. Okay. Now, okay. So last week, like I said, Perry Berman, not too much that was particularly compelling about his testimony, other than just to sort of give a little bit of a window into the family. He sort of spent a lot of time with the family. He became good friends with Erik and Lyle over the years. And so anyway, so there was a bit of that, but I don't think that his testimony really moved the needle one way or another. And then we heard from Craig Signorelli, the supposed best friend of Erik Menendez. And I put that in air quotes because his testimony seemed to indicate he's maybe not so much his best friend, but his best frenemy. They were friends in high school. They were on the same tennis team. Craig Signorelli was like the number one in doubles, and Erik was number one in singles on the team. And so the defense did a good job of sort of painting a picture of like, okay, you guys are competitors here. How much of good friends are you? He definitely came across as very slick, I will say. And not Mantha Johnny, that dude is not his friend, not what I'd consider one anyway, right? Because so the biggest part of his testimony though was that he was saying that he sometime after the killings happened, he was at the Menendez house with Erik and with the computer guy and his pregnant wife, who was looking through the computer ostensibly for some prior copy of a will that had been deleted or something like that. And the idea was that the sons had been removed from the will, and so they were trying to find the older version so that they could go with that and get all of the money from their parents after they had just killed them. So the other part of it, though, is that he says that Erik basically confessed to him that he and Lyle had shot their parents and that they had killed them essentially in cold blood. So there were all kinds of questions about, whether he actually knew this from this supposed confession or whether he knew about it because the other confession had already sort of come to light. There were all kinds of questions about that. And he, like I said, he came off as very slick. And I think that he, like I said, so he was, I don't know. I didn't believe him. I did not believe his testimony. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. So today we've got Donovan Goudreau. This is a friend of Lyle, supposedly a friend of Lyle, again being brought up by the prosecution. So we'll figure it out if this is actually a friend or not. And then we'll hear from Robert Rand, who's a journalist, Glenn Stevens, who's another supposed friend of Lyle, and then Richard Wenskowski, who I think is a bodyguard here. So okay. And also, as far as guests are concerned, Natalie mentioned that she's going to be popping in. I'm not sure exactly when, because folks know at this point that this is it's fairly informal, right? They can drop in, drop out, and we're going on for a few hours here. So, okay, so let's get into it, shall we? Let's do it. Okay.
In the trial, both defendants are in court with their attorneys and the people are represented. And we have both juries in the courtroom at this point. To the Lyle Menendez jury, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but we haven't finished off the testimony from this morning, but we now have, and we're ready to resume. The next witness will be testifying before both juries, and you may call your next witness.
The people call Donovan Goodreau to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause of opinion court, so the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please take the stand and state the name of the record.
Oh no. Okay, there we go.
Donovan Goodreau,
Say your last name, please.
Goodreau.
Mr. Goudreau, sit back and take a deep breath, okay?
Okay.
Back in February of 1989, were you living in Princeton, New Jersey?
Yes, I was.
And in February of that year, did you meet Lyle Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Do you see Lyle Menendez in court today?
Yes, I do.
What color clothing is he wearing today that you can see?
Beige.
Does he have
Beige sweater with a blue collar.
indicating the defendant for the record, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the defendant, Lyle Menendez.
Were you working at the time that you first met Lyle Menendez?
Yes, I was.
And where were you working?
I was working at TGI Fridays in the Princeton Market Fair
And how did you meet Lyle Menendez?
through his girlfriend, Jamie Pizarnik.
Is that Pizarnik?
Yes, excuse me.
Did she also work at TGI Fridays with you?
Yes, she did.
Another
And it
Paisley
was through
tie,
her that
guys.
you met Mr. Menendez?
Yes, it is.
And was he a student at Princeton University when you met him?
Yes, he was.
And I take it this TGI Fridays was in the same area that the university was?
Yes, it was at the Princeton Market Fair. It was a short distance from the school.
Were you a student at Princeton University at the time that you met Lyle Menendez?
No, I wasn't.
Were you ever a student at Princeton University?
No, I wasn't.
And when you met Lyle Menendez, did you and he become friends?
Yes, we did.
And after becoming friends, did you in fact become his roommate?
Yes, I did.
And when you were his roommate, where did you live with him?
Gauss Hall on campus.
Okay, is Gauss spelled G-A-U-S-C?
Gauss, I think.
Okay. And that was student housing for Princeton University, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
So even though you were a non-student, you were living in the student housing, is that correct?
Yes.
That's weird.
How long did you actually live in this room at Gauss Hall with Lyle Menendez?
Approximately 2 months.
And at the end of 2 months, did you leave the room?
Yes, I did.
And briefly, under what circumstances did you leave?
It was towards the end of the school year for him, and he was under the assumption that I was a Princeton student, and I think he had found out that I wasn't going to be a matriculating student, becoming a student the next year, and was kind of under the understanding that I was, and it upset him, so he wanted me out of the room.
So did you in fact leave?
Yes, I did.
And when you left the room, did you notice after you left that you left something behind?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, when you left Princeton, where did you go?
I went to New York.
And why did you pick New York?
I have family.
And when you went there, did you take a bus, a plane, a train, a car? How'd you do it?
I had a truck. I just drove.
Sometime while driving to New York, did you discover that something was missing?
Yes, I did. I pulled over on Route 1 because I was assuming that I might be pulled over. And I didn't have my wallet with me. So I looked through all the stuff that we had put in the back upon my moving out, and I didn't find my wallet.
And when you say we had put in the back, did someone help you pack your bags and leave?
Yes.
And who was that?
Glenn Stevens, Lyle Menendez, Hayden.
Okay, is that Hayden Rogers?
Yes.
Was Hayden Rogers a friend of Lyle's at the university?
Yes, he was.
Was Glenn Stevens a friend of Lyle's at the university?
Yes, he was.
And as long as we're going down the list, I believe you indicated you knew Miss Pizarnik, Lyle Menendez's girlfriend. Was she a Princeton University student?
No, she wasn't.
Now, I think you indicated you thought you might get pulled over. Was there something wrong with your truck?
Yeah, the registration wasn't complete.
Oh, no.
I didn't have like the smog stuff done on it. It wasn't complete
No
registration. There was a lot of
license,
paperwork.
Incomplete
And if had anyone pulled
registration.
them over, they may have given them a ticket.
Smog issues.
So-
Given them a ticket? Or
Whoever was
This
driving
guy
the truck.
sounds like a mess.
All right. And did you notice your wallet was missing?
Yeah, upon leaving the school, yes, I did.
Did you ever get that wallet back?
No, I didn't.
What was inside of the wallet when you last saw it?
Oh, driver's license, California, social security card, a couple pictures, phone numbers, bank card,
Okay, do you remember what kind of bank card you had?
Wells Fargo.
And is that the kind of bank card where you put it in an ATM machine, you punch in a number, and then you get money?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you have any credit cards in there?
No, I didn't.
And the items that you've just identified to us, it was a wallet and the contents. Did you ever get any of those items back?
No, I didn't.
Now, I believe you indicated you had a California driver's license. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And was that the driver's license you were using when you were
Sandra Ramirez,
driving in New
thanks so much
Jersey?
for gifting 10 Legal
Yes,
Bytes
yes, it
memberships.
was.
And at
So
one
kind
point,
and
prior
generous
to
of
living
you
in New
once
Jersey,
again.
had you in fact lived in
And
California?
to everybody that's now
Yes.
a member of
Do you
Bike
remember
Club,
what
welcome to
city
Bike
that you
Club.
lived in?
Several.
Hope to see you on
Cupertino,
Friday
Sunnyvale, San Jose.
for our
Your Honor, I
Members
have
only by
here
Club
certified copy from the DMV of a driver's license. I'd like to mark this as people's. I believe we're at 49. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have here a copy of from the DMV. I also have 2 Xerox copies of the certification and the license itself. May these be subsets 49 A and B, the duplicates,
All right, you can mark them separately.
50 and 51 then?
No, you can mark them 49 and 8, just mark
Okay.
them so we know what you're referring to.
Yes, let's please.
Yes.
Oh, actually. Mr. Goudreau, I'm going to show you this exhibit 49. I'd like to ask you if you recognize what is depicted there.
It's my California driver's license.
Was this the one that was inside of your wallet when you left Princeton University? What month was it when you left?
Early May.
Now, on this particular copy, it's kind
We
of.
have an answer to the previous question.
Andy, are you
asked
talking
something
about me or
what's
someone
in your
else?
wallet.
Did I zip
Oh, I'm
over
sorry, Your
just now?
This item number 49, which I now have up on the board.
And Sandra Ramirez, thanks so much for
Is
gifting
this
5
copy
more
of the driver's
memberships.
license
That's
that
so
was
kind
inside
of
your
you.
wallet, when you left it behind at Princeton?
Yes, it is.
Now, on the right side, it's hard to see, but there appears to be a number, a typical California driver's license number. Could you read that number to the jury?
C5374791.
And was that in fact your California driver's license number?
I have no idea.
All right, well, did you ever use your driver's license to cash a check or anything like that?
Did I ever use it to cash a check?
You know, when they ask
Sure.
you,
I'm sure I have, yes.
all right, and they ask you what your license number is?
No, I don't remember. I don't recall ever having to use my license number.
But this particular driver's license 49, is this in fact a true and correct copy of the license that was in your wallet?
Yes, it is.
Now, the address on this driver's license appears to be 10646 Rosewood Road, Apartment A, Cupertino, California, 95014. Was that your address at the time that you got this license?
Yes.
Can you speak up?
Yes, it is.
After you left the room in approximately, I think it was May of 1989, when was the next time you saw Lyle Menendez?
I never did. Now.
Today is the first time since then?
Yes, it is.
Now, sometime in August of 1989, did you become aware of the killings of Jose and Mary Louise Menendez?
Yes, I did.
And sometime after that, were you contacted by the Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes, I was.
And prior to them contacting you, had you made an attempt through the Beverly Hills Police Department to find out what had happened?
Yes, I did.
And after that, when the police contacted you, did they ask you about your whereabouts on a particular day in August of 1989?
In March of 1990, they asked for my whereabouts on the date of August 18th, 1989.
And were you able in March of 1990 to reconstruct your whereabouts on the day of August the 18th of 1989?
Yes.
Where were you on that day?
I was in New York City working.
And where were you working?
Boxer's Restaurant.
Were you by any chance in San Diego at any time, either 2 days before or 2 days after the 18th of August of 1989?
No.
Okay. Did you buy any shotguns during that period of time? I'm talking about that 5-day period.
No, I didn't.
Your Honor, I have here
Yes, this is important
some
because they
records,
apparently
some
swiped
work
his
records. I'd like to mark
driver's
them.
license and used it
as
to buy the
people's
shotguns
next
in
in order,
San
which is
Diego 2
50.
days before.
Actually, what it is an envelope containing 2 pieces of paper, one of which looks like a time card, the other of which is just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. May the envelope and its contents be marked as 50, please?
Yes.
Thank you. May I approach, please?
Yes.
Mr. Goudreau, first of all, I'm going to show you what looks like a signature time card. I'd like to ask you, what does this represent?
This is my time card for boxers, just during the week.
Okay, and at the request of the Beverly Hills Police Department, did you in fact get the time card for the week in question, that is on or about the 18th of August of 1989?
Yes, I did.
In addition, this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, which appears to be, is this an original?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and it has a number of names on the left of it. It also has the name Donovan. It has Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all the way through Wednesday listed at the top. And it appears on Friday. There are numbers there that say 8/6. Could you indicate for your name on Friday what 8/6 means?
I was working the morning shift, 8 to 6 p.m.
And next to it for Saturday is the word put in a pen, host. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And did you then in fact work as the host at the restaurant on Saturday?
Saturday evening, yes, I did.
So that would have been the 19th of August. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then on Sunday, it looks like it says off. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then on Monday, it says 8/6. Would that mean that you were off on Sunday, the 20th, and back at work on the 21st?
Yes.
Sandra Ramirez, thanks for buying 5
Yeah,
more
I also
Legalbytes
have,
memberships. That's so
For
kind of you again.
I have Xeroxes of both of the documents contained therein. I shall mark those also 60 envelopes.
These are what?
They're Xeroxes of the contents of People's 50, the 2 pages, the time
These-
card and the record.
Okay. These are duplicates then of Exhibit 50.
Yes, they're actually just Xeroxes, Your Honor. In addition to providing records of your whereabouts around the 18th of August of 1989, did you also provide a handwriting sample for use in a handwriting comparison?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I have here an envelope. I'd like to have it and its contents marked as Exhibit 51, please.
Yes.
May I approach, please?
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 51, which is an envelope addressed to Beverly Hills Police Department containing 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11, looks like graph paper. I'd like to ask you if these 2 pieces of paper are familiar to you.
Yes, they are.
Okay, and what is this?
That's my signature.
All right, it's not a reading for your heartbeat or anything. That's your signature?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, you have a terrible signature, dude.
And lastly, Your Honor, I have here an envelope. I'd like to mark it and its contents, which contain 3 pieces of paper as Exhibit 52, please, Your Honor.
52.
In addition, I have placed on both boards a blow-up of all of the pieces of paper for Exhibit 52. Maybe you can mark it with please.
So yeah, this
They'll be
is
marked as 53.
all corroborating
They're 53.
his
Both of them?
side,
Thank
saying my license was used
Mr.
And
Goudreau?
Not by
what you
me.
can do is mark 52.
during the night
If there's
of
separate
this
documents there, A, B,
happening.
and C.
All right, thank you.
And
I
then
was
same
working, I was doing this
53,
other stuff.
sort of Corresponding documents.
Actually, on 53, there are 4 pages because it's a back and front of 1 page.
Okay.
So I'll start slowly from the beginning.
All right.
Mr. Goudreau, I have here an exhibit which is contained in 52. It is a yellow piece of paper. The original is yellow. We're going to call this 52A for the record. And the reverse side will be 52B. I'd like to ask you if you ever filled out this form or had anything to do with the transaction contained in this form 52A.
No.
Now, you can see there's a signature that appears to be something along the lines of Donovan Goudreau and the date 8/1889. You see that?
Yes.
And for the jury, the first page of 53 corresponds to the testimony that he's giving right now. And for the other jury, that would be the top page with the driver's license. Then, Mr. Goudreau, in the middle of the page, you can see the signature and also the date. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you did not, in fact, sign that form at any time, did you, sir?
No, I didn't.
Now, also, while you're looking at the form, can you see that it has type of identification CDL C537471? Do you
Yes.
see that there?
Yes, I do.
All right, does that correspond to the license, California license number on the license that I just showed you?
Yes, it does.
Rather than you going back and forth, if Mr. Kuriyama could volunteer his services to move some of these pages.
All right.
Get off your butt, Kuriyama.
The next page.
That's what the judge is saying. Help your teammate.
And go on. All right, the next page on this exhibit. Here's about 2/3 down the page to contain a signature under 8/18/89, and the 8 from 18 is written over, and there's a signature Donovan Goudreau. And I'm showing you exhibit, what we're gonna call 52C, excuse me, 52B. I'd like to ask you, right here, referring to 8/18/89, dealer register number 415, signature Donovan Goudreau, 63 August Street. Did you fill out that form, sir?
No.
And lastly, referring to the last portion of 52, which is 52C.
Oh, okay. I guess we skipped over the commercial break. Hey.
Just below the middle of the page, there's another notation of 8/18/89.
This is a
Dealer
prosecution
415,
witness.
signature Donovan
Sokotoa.
Goudreau, 63 August
you know.
Street. Did you fill that out, sir?
No.
And for this jury also. Now, 63 August Street, which is listed on these last two forms we've talked about, 52B and C. Do you know what 63 August Street is?
No, I don't.
Did you ever live at 63 August Street?
No.
Now, your last name is spelled Goodreau. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have a moment, please, Your Honor. Now, I think you made reference to the fact that inside of the wallet that you did not have with you when you went to New York was a bank card. Is that correct?
Yes.
After you noticed your bank card missing, did you ever notice any withdrawals on that account using the ATM bank card?
No.
During the period of time that you were living with Lyle Menendez, how would you characterize your relationship with him?
He was my best friend.
And that was for a period of 2 months, is that correct?
Probably 3.5 months, maybe.
At some point during this 3.5 month period, did you go to California with him?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell us the circumstances of how that occurred?
He had gone out over spring break. I stayed in Princeton, and the next day he called me up and sent me a ticket to come out and see him.
And did you in fact use that ticket to go see him?
Yes, I did.
Sounds
Did you pay
generous.
for that ticket?
No, I didn't.
And did you ever meet the Menendez family while you were in California?
Yes, I did.
For what period of time did you know them?
I met them originally in California, and then when his father came out to Princeton, I met him twice.
Okay, did you meet the father at Princeton before or after?
After.
Okay, so you met the family together in California, and then later on the father at Princeton. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you went to the family home, was Erik Menendez there?
Yes, he was.
Okay, did you have dinner at the family home?
Yes.
And how many days did you spend with the entire family?
In California?
Yes.
1,
How many days did you spend in California total?
maybe 4.
And was it the first night that you were there that the whole family was there?
Yes.
Did you have dinner with the family?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell us what the dinner was like?
It was a lot of pressure. He hadn't seen his father in a while.
Okay, now, are you a little nervous?
Isn't everybody here nervous?
Okay. Okay, take a breath. When you say he hadn't seen his father in a while, who are you referring to?
Referring to Lyle. We had gone out there. I had never met his father. He told me a lot about his father. And going out for dinner, we were kind of talking about some of the things we were going to talk about during dinner.
Okay, when you say you talked about some of the things you were going to talk about during dinner, were you talking about topics or?
Yes.
All right, and during the dinner, what was the atmosphere like?
I was sitting on pins and needles, but Lyle seemed to handle it pretty well.
All right, but you were sitting on pins and needles. Why?
Well, because Lyle was also at the time still under the assumption that I was going to become a Princeton student. And his father turned to me after greeting me and started asking me questions about that.
Now, let's talk about this idea of you being a Princeton student. How did that idea get started?
It started when I got a job at TGI Fridays.
And who mentioned the idea that you were going to Princeton?
To get a job there, I told him I was going to be in the area that I was planning on being a student at school. And then Jamie heard about it, and then Jamie told Lyle, and then it just grew and grew and grew.
And pretty soon everyone thought you were going to be graduating from Princeton University.
Yes.
Did you have any intention of graduating from Princeton?
No, I didn't.
Had you ever applied to Princeton?
No, I haven't.
But so the genesis or the beginning of this was that you were trying to get this job?
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's
Now,
funny.
when you had this dinner with the Menendez family on your first night in California, did Mr. Menendez ask you questions about your plans?
Yes, he did, right away.
Did you tell him that you were going to be a Princeton student?
Yes.
Were you convincing?
Not very.
Okay. Were you uncomfortable during the dinner?
Initially, yes, but after a while, he turned to Lyle and they started conversing about school and other things, and the pressure was kind of off at that point.
What about the mother? What was she like
When
when you had dinner?
she was very quiet.
Did you speak to her at all?
Not directly, no.
Did anyone speak to her?
Not directly, no.
What was she doing?
She was sitting there and listening very intently to what was going on, and then as she would try to include herself in part of this conversation, no one really paid much attention to her.
Oh,
Now, who was
sad.
present at this dinner? Would you give us all the participants?
Lyle's mother and father, Lyle, myself.
It was Erik at the dinner table.
No, he wasn't.
Do you know where he was?
I'm assuming he was out. I remember seeing him earlier.
All right, so you had seen him earlier in the day,
Yes.
and do you see him in court today?
Yes, I do.
What's he wearing today?
He's wearing a plaid red shirt, blue tie.
Referring to the defendant, Erik Menendez, at the council table.
Thank you. Now, after this dinner that you had with the Menendez family, did you spend the night at the Menendez home?
Yes, I did.
And the following day, did you see the parents?
I can't recall if I did in the morning or not.
You don't. Nothing stands out in your mind.
No.
Where did you stay inside of the house?
One of the upstairs bedrooms.
Do you know where Lyle stayed when you spent that first night there?
I'm assuming in the guest house,
Okay.
out in the back.
All right, so there was a guest house on the property,
Yes, it was.
and during the period of time that you were in California, did you ever go and look around the guest house?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Could you tell us what it was like?
It was it looked like its own house out and back. It was a nice little place, the kitchen downstairs. Upstairs was a bedroom and a bathroom. It was very well kept. It was just off the side of the tennis courts.
Okay, so you actually went inside of it.
Yes, I did.
Now, this trip that you went on, was this during spring break?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay,
it was.
It wasn't your spring break, but it was everybody else's who was in school, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the day after the dinner, did the parents leave to go someplace?
I was under the assumption that Erik had a tennis tournament in Florida, and I was just Lyle and myself by ourselves over the weekend.
And so you stayed in the Menendez home during the weekend? Is
Yes,
that
I
correct?
did.
And then the next time you saw anyone in the Menendez family would have been the father, is that correct?
Yes.
And did he visit Lyle at Princeton University while you were still Lyle's roommate?
Yes.
So that would have been before you got escorted out of the room?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you were preparing yourself for this dinner, was there any anxiety in Lyle Menendez? In other words, did he give you any tips or give you any clues to what kind of dinner you were going to have?
Yes, he did.
Okay, could you tell us about that, please?
I think either that afternoon or shortly before that, he had told me that his father was very critical of his friends and that he was really hoping that his father would like me.
Now, the summer of 1989, did you have some plans to go and spend the summer in California with the Menendez family?
Yes.
And did you, in fact, ever do that?
No, I didn't.
Were you ever told why you couldn't do that?
Well, when I left the room, it was pretty much, given that I wasn't going to go out for the summer.
And when you say you left the room, what room are you talking about?
The dorm room at Gauss Hall on Princeton.
All right. This is out of context, but where were you born?
California, Glenora.
In Glendora?
Glenora,
Oh, Glenora, California. Okay. And how old are you now, sir?
26.
Okay. May I have a moment, please, Your Honor?
You can move back if you want.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Interesting. I don't know where Glenora is. I wonder if that's in Northern California. I know where Glendora is. That's like Southern California, east.
Did you ever give permission to Erik Menendez to use your driver's license?
No.
Now, during the period of time that you and Lyle Menendez were roommates, did you ever allow him to use your license?
Yes, I did.
And did you ever use his?
I used his student ID to eat on campus as social security card just to memorize the numbers.
Okay. Was the social security number required in order to get into a place to eat at Princeton University?
Yes, it was.
And so you were allowed to eat there even though you weren't a student, is that correct? Well, you weren't allowed to, you just,
Exactly.
okay, thank you, nothing further.
Cross-examination, who wants to go first? All right, Ms. Lansing.
Yeah, weird that he just gave him his social security
Good
number.
afternoon.
Mr. Goudreau, you told us that you first met Lyle Menendez in 1989 in February. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you met him through his girlfriend, Jamie. Is that correct?
Yes.
From the time you met him till the day that you left his dorm room, did you see him on a regular basis?
Yes.
How often did you see him?
Every day.
Were you with him all day?
Pretty much all day.
Were the two of you the closest of the friends of the group of people who were around?
Yes, until the end. Shortly before the end, started to change a little.
Okay. And the other two people who were around most frequently were Hayden Rogers and Glenn Stevens at that time?
Yes.
You had
I'm apprehensive because Greg Guest was also around.
Okay. And you were not going to classes with him, obviously, because you weren't a student. Is that correct?
I still went to a couple classes.
Okay. And
I sat in on some lectures and stuff.
what other things would you do together?
Everything. I mean, all day long. I was working in the evenings at TGI Fridays, but outside of that, we spent all our time together. We ate together, did everything together.
Did you talk a lot?
Yes, we did.
And did you talk about your families a lot?
Yes, we did.
And did you think that you and Lyle were on the same footing in terms of economics?
No, not at all.
What was the difference?
He came from a wealthy family and I didn't.
Okay. And how did you know he came from a wealthy family?
He told me. Actually, I think Jamie told me first.
Okay. And did you see him spending money?
Yes, I did.
What kinds of things would he buy?
Well, he wasn't extravagant. I mean, he wasn't any more wealthy than any of the other kids
At
school.
Princeton?
Yeah, he didn't have all the money in the world. I mean, he was basically on allowance like most students there. So he was, he had he spent, accordingly.
Did he have credit cards?
I think he had one credit card, yes.
And could he sign for things at the student store?
Yes, he could.
And what types of things could he buy, or did you see him buy?
At the student store?
At the university store.
We got I think the most expensive would have been a computer, which his father approved of, and clothes and other things.
How much was the computer?
I'm assuming a little over $3,000.
And who was the computer for? Did he use a computer?
Actually, it became more. He used a computer, but I think a couple other people came and used it too.
And did you use it?
Yes, I did.
So he could just sign at the university store
For just about anything, and the bill went to his father.
Okay. And you said he bought the computer and he bought clothes.
Clothes, yes.
Now, did he buy like one sweatshirt during the time or
Oh,
more?
no, I mean, a lot of clothes. I mean, sweatshirts and shorts and sweats and all kinds of stuff.
Okay. And did he buy food there? Could you buy food there?
No.
Was there a place you could order pizzas from?
Yes, it was on campus.
Okay. And did he order pizzas and charge them?
I don't recall any, no.
Did other people borrow things that belonged to Lyle?
Yeah, Lyle was pretty lax about that.
Things
His
like
dorm room was always open, except for maybe, every once in a while he would lock the door. And people would come in and borrow shoes. And I remember several occasions where people would come by and borrow a shirt here and there and then return it later, or CDs. Hayden was if we were missing anything, we'd just go over to Hayden's room. And find it.
So Lyle's door was open and people helped themselves?
Yeah.
I take it. And he didn't seem to stop that?
No, everyone was under the assumption that it was okay as long as you told him about it. And if he wasn't there, then they returned it. Greg Gessie borrowed a pair of shoes one time, and Lyle didn't bite his head off. There wasn't any problems with that.
Was he generous with his friends?
With his close circle of friends, yes, very generous.
In what ways?
Well, he didn't have a whole lot of money. He had what little allowance he had, and whatever, he spent that very quickly. But if he had $10 and we were hungry, we would all eat. So.
And while you were at Princeton, was he helping you out economically while you were living in the dorm room with him?
Well, aside from living in a dorm room, which was the greatest help of all, I'd have to say, I want to say no, but there was a couple times he did help me, yeah.
Okay. And I think you've already mentioned that you would use the card that he had to eat.
Yes,
So I take it that the dorm included.
the dorm and
Meals.
his school pass for food.
Now, did he talk to you about whether he was happy being at Princeton or not?
Yes, he did.
And what did he tell you about that?
I don't think he enjoyed being there.
Whose idea was Princeton?
Director's alternate.
You understand the question?
It was his father's idea to go to Princeton.
And when he talked to you about his family, did he tell you how he felt about that? The fact that he was going to the school that his father had picked?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yes. When he talked to you about the fact that he was attending Princeton because his father had picked that school, did he tell you how he felt about it? Was he angry or disappointed, or what was his feeling about that?
I think he was happy to go there. It was a great school, but he was kind of under pressure to do well. And this was all kind of a residual effect from his father.
Did he ever indicate to you that he wanted to go to any other school?
Yes, he did.
Where did he want to go to school?
UCLA, I think, came to mind.
Okay. And when you spent all this time with him and you were talking, would you just stay in the dorm room or would you go places with him?
Oh, well, we traveled everywhere together. We just never stopped talking. I mean, in my truck, in his Volkswagen, everywhere, over dinner.
Did you spend time with him at his Aunt Terry's house?
Yes, several nights.
And would he go over there regularly to visit?
Yeah, it was a very comfortable place to go stop by.
And on the two occasions that you've told us that you saw his father back there, was it at Aunt Terry's or was it somewhere else?
Director mistakes the evidence.
Sustained.
I'm sorry. How many times did you see Mr. Menendez back in Princeton?
3. Oh, in Princeton twice.
And where was
At Aunt Terry's house.
And on those occasions, did you see Lyle and his father interact?
Yes.
What was the nature of the relationship?
It was just a basic father and son relationship. It didn't seem, his father was in town on business. He had a lot of things on his mind. Lyle brought the computer over into his Aunt Terry's house to show him. And I think we were learning how to use a computer at the time. We're still adjusting to it. So it was over dinner. It was quite, informal.
Do you remember an incident where he took Lyle down into the basement for an extended talk at Aunt Terry's?
Yes, I do.
How long was that talk?
3 hours.
Did anybody else go down there during that period of time?
I don't know.
Were you there the whole time?
The whole conversation. I can't remember if I was there the whole conversation.
Were you there for a long time?
Yes.
Did anybody go into the basement during
That
the
is,
time you
I
were there?
agree.
I didn't see anyone go downstairs.
Donovan
no.
seems like
And would his father
a decent
call him
person.
on the phone, or would
I didn't
he
get
call
that
his
impression about
parents in
Craig
front
last
of you on a regular basis during this time that you knew him?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How often?
I'd say no more than once a week.
That who would call whom?
Well, Lyle would call home or his father would call. I'd say it goes both ways.
And were you aware of the type of information that his father wanted from him? Did he just call to say, hi, how are you? Or
More like checkup calls.
what do you mean by checkup calls?
How is this going?
Talking about the nature of the calls.
Yeah, overall.
Thank you.
If Lyle had a test coming up or Lyle wasn't doing well in school, he was always kind of just calling to find out how he was getting along and things.
Fair, Debbie. Fair. He did lie
Now,
about
when
being a
you knew
student.
that you were going to come out to California and meet Mr. Menendez, you told us that you were nervous because you knew that you had represented yourself as a Princeton student, and that wasn't true. Is
Yes.
that correct? Why were you particularly nervous about meeting Mr. Menendez under those conditions?
Lyle had told me about a former friend of his named Cole, whose father, I think, liked Cole, but didn't think that he was going to accomplish much and kind of thought that he wouldn't be a very good influence for Lyle.
Did you have the sense that Mr. Menendez picked Lyle's friends and girlfriends?
Maybe not necessarily picked, but had a really strong influence in choosing them.
And did you practice for this dinner table conversation?
Yes, we did.
How did you practice?
Well, he would play the part of his father.
He being Lyle,
Yeah,
and you would be you.
I would be me.
And how often did you practice before this dinner table
I
conversation?
can't recall how long
That's
we did it,
wild.
but it seemed like maybe a little more than an hour.
It's wild that there was enough
And
pressure on him meeting their dad.
When Lyle was playing Mr. Menendez,
That
what
they had
type
to,
of,
like,
what was the
rehearse
questioning
for it.
like?
Oh, just background stuff and, what I want to do, what I want to accomplish for the future and stuff. Nothing more than that.
And after you had this hour practice session to meet Mr. Menendez, was the actual meeting similar to the way the practice session had been?
Yes, it was.
In what ways?
The questions weren't exactly the same, but I felt as equally under pressure with Lyle as I was with his father, having to say the same ridiculous answers over and over again, being false.
Okay. But in trying to recreate what you had experienced with his father, he made it a very intense experience. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes, absolutely.
And the actual dinner conversation with Mr. Menendez was in fact intense.
Yes, it was.
Wow. That's wild.
Mr. Goudreau, can you see from where you are the book that I'm holding up,
Yes,
The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino?
yes.
Do you recognize this book?
Yes, I do.
How is it you recognize it?
Lyle gave me a copy of that book when I was living with him.
And what did he tell you about this book?
It was just an inspirational author that he had kind of fallen in love with over the years.
Who had directed him to this book?
His father.
And how would his father deal with him with this book?
Oh, I don't know.
Did Lyle seem to be able to quote sections, passages of this book?
Yes, quite readily.
And did you learn to memorize sections of this book also?
Yes, I did.
Is that part of the relationship that you had with Lyle, was that he was training you to a degree the same way his father trained him?
No.
What was the purpose of memorizing sections of the book?
Well, he just liked the author and thought the book was very, just very well. It was a type of book where it kind of told you, broke things down to scriptures, and it wasn't like very religious, but it just kind of said, it was just an inspirational author that he thought I would like and read often. So he actually read me the first couple scriptures.
And could he quote them?
Yes, he could.
And by the end of the relationship, could you quote them?
Within a couple weeks, I could have quoted him.
Did Jose strike you as a very powerful man,
Yes.
an intimidating man?
No, not, he didn't, I wasn't intimidated by him, but I could see in a business sense he was very intimidating.
Did it seem to be important to Lyle to please him?
Yes, it was.
Did Lyle ever discuss with you the possibility that he was already out of his father's will?
I can't recall. No.
Might have come up?
I think it may have come up. I don't remember.
Did he have a sense that maybe he wasn't doing everything that his father wanted?
Yes.
Did he have a sense that he was disappointing his father?
Yes.
Did he seem to want to do what would make his father happy?
Objection calls for speculation on part of witness.
Yeah,
Objection sustained.
yeah. It's a bit speculative.
When you were asked to leave the dorm room, who asked you to leave?
Lyle did.
Can you tell me how that happened?
On early May, 7th, 8th, or 9th, I'd woken up. He was gone. He came in to the room, and behind him was Greg Guest, Hayden Rogers, and Glenn Stevens. Lyle told the three of them that he was going to do the talking, and he set me down and told me that he found out that I wasn't going to be a Princeton student, and he feels like he was let down in the friendship, and asked me to leave.
Did he seem sad?
Yes, he did.
And were there other things that were discussed, other things that he had some questions about whether you'd been honest with him or not?
Yes, he did.
And did he question whether you'd been honest with him about your feelings and whether the friendship was genuine?
Yes, he did.
Did he seem to be hurt?
Oh, yes, very much.
Did he receive a call that morning from his parents that you know of?
Objection calls for speculation on hearsay.
Sustained.
Just whether, not what the conversation was, just whether he'd received a call that morning, Your Honor.
Are you asking whether this witness received a phone call?
No, I'm asking if this witness knows if Lyle had received a call from his parents
Well, we
that
called
morning.
for conclusion on his part unless he was there.
Were you there
I did answer the phone. His father did call.
that morning?
Yes.
Did you have any conversation with his father yourself?
He asked where Lyle was, and I said, he's not here right now. Do you want to have him call you back? And he said, no, I'll call back.
Now, when Lyle confronted you about the fact that you had misrepresented yourself in several areas, did he tell you then you had to leave?
Yes.
Was this a very emotional scene?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Can you tell me how?
It was just tough. There was no preparation time for me to sit there and tell them why or how this had all gotten started. Hayden was very upset, very protective of Lyle, and wanted to hurt me. But everyone was holding him back, and I never really got a chance to set the record straight with that. So
Set the record straight in what way?
how things had gotten started, where I was really coming from.
Why you had told the lies?
Yes.
And was that sad for you also?
Oh, yeah. I was really hurt. I had a great friendship with all of them. Under false pretenses, but yet still a great friendship.
And when Lyle told you you had to leave, Did he seem more angry or more hurt?
Very hurt.
And how did your possessions end up leaving that room?
I kept most of my things in like a milk crate. I had like several milk crates, like most college students do. And we pulled the truck up to the window.
Who pulled the truck up?
Lyle and Greg Guest went and got the truck, which was parked over by one of the eating clubs where we had left it the night before. Drove it back over. We loaded the stuff and out the window, just right onto the truck.
When you say loaded the stuff out the window, was this done gently and in an organized fashion?
No, it took some time. This whole episode lasted about maybe a little more than an hour. I got up and after he had spoken to me, I took a shower and came back to the room. We started putting stuff together, and there was some conflict over whether I was going to be taking some of his stuff or not. And, we were kind of going through it and separating ownership of things.
Okay, and you were putting things in the truck yourself?
I think I helped a little bit towards the end, but a lot of the moving was done by somebody else. It wasn't me.
Who else was doing it?
Maybe Greg Guest and Hayden. I think we're doing a lot of it. I'm not sure where Lyle was at this time.
Did you see him as you drove off?
Yes, I did.
And how did he look?
That was the last time I remember him. He was standing about 100 yards, a hand in his pocket, head down.
Excuse me, 100 yards.
100 yards away. And I was just about to drive off. And I looked out the side window, and the roads were perpendicular, and I was about to head off. And I looked down the driveway, and I could see him standing there facing me. And I just drove off.
How did he look?
Well, from that distance, he looked upset in the room. But you could see at that moment he was like, his head was down and his hands were in his pocket. He looked pretty upset.
Upset angry or upset sad?
Probably both.
Did he say anything more to you while he was packing your things up?
No.
When you spent all of this time with Lyle and talked about your past and your future, I take it you covered both?
Yes.
And did you talk about what both of you had in terms of dreams for the future, business plans, family plans, hopes for the future?
Yes.
And did you feel that the two of you had similar dreams?
Yes, we did.
And when you talked about your past, did you feel that you had similarities in your past also?
Yes, we did.
And what kind of similarities did you have in your past?
Very oppressive fathers.
And when he talked about his father's behavior toward him, did he tell you anything specific about what his father did?
Your Honor, I don't object as being first say.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of testimony.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Want to argue it, you can come up to the side
Okay.
about that.
When you say that it was very oppressive, did he complain about his father?
Yes, he did.
And did he seem to feel that the things his father had done were wrong?
Calls for hearsay and speculation by the witness.
Objection overruled.
Yes.
And did he point to particular things his father had done that seemed to be wrong?
Yes.
And what did he point to?
Objection calls for hearsay.
When you
Sustained.
talked about your background, did you talk about areas that you had in common?
Yes.
And was it your impression that Lyle admired his father?
Yes, very much so.
And yet, were there things about him that he did not admire?
Yes.
Okay. Can we approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So the testimony, so Shireen, you're right.
All
That
right, let's resume.
they're not allowing.
Are you finished at this point,
I have.
subject to further questioning?
I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
And there's no cross-examination by Erik Menendez at this point? Okay. Everybody,
Okay, so I think that they're going to do a redirect. But yeah, Shireen, they're not allowing testimony about the abuse at the moment. The reason is because anything that he would be testifying to about it would be Lyle told me, when we were talking about our dads, Lyle told me that his dad used to do X. So which is hearsay. So that's he's not a proper person because of the fact that he only knows because of what Lyle told him, which means you've got a hearsay hurdle. So yeah, and I've got some more questions too that I've got saved away, as well as some super chats. So just so you guys know, I'm saving those. I'll get them in just a little bit.
Everybody is settled. You may conduct redirect.
Mr. Goudreau, you spoke about a computer. Do you remember what kind of computer it was? And what I'm talking about, was it an Apple or was it an IBM or IBM clone?
It's an Apple.
Was it a desk computer or was it a portable computer?
It was a personal computer.
By personal computer, you mean?
It was not a
I'll get this
portable.
in a sec.
Okay, it wasn't a notebook.
No.
Okay. And you worked on that computer as well?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever see Lyle Menendez working on the computer?
Yes, I did.
Do you appear to know how to work it?
No.
No? He couldn't work an Apple computer?
No, we couldn't.
Okay.
Interesting.
Now, I believe you indicated that you and Lyle were extremely close friends,
Buffering.
correct?
Yes.
And that you were very hurt by the fact that you were ejected from his room. Would that be correct?
Not necessarily from the room, but from the relationship, yes.
Also, I apologize. I just noticed that the sound and the audio, or the audio and the video, are not synced for some reason right now, but this is from the source material, so bear with me.
And you were very hurt, correct?
Yes.
And he was very hurt.
I'm assuming so, yes.
Well, you testified he looked hurt.
He looked hurt.
Okay. After you discovered that his parents were deceased, did he ever make any attempt to get in touch with you?
2 weeks ago, I received a letter.
All right, but aside from the 2 weeks ago, between May of 1989 and 2 weeks ago, did he ever make any attempt to get in touch with you?
No.
And you were very good friends, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, anything further on those matters before we take a break? Okay. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is excuse the Erik Menendez jury until tomorrow at 10:30. And we'll continue on a little bit here with the Lyle Menendez jury. So when you come back tomorrow at 10:30, I'd ask that instead of coming in here, that you take the road that the other jury has been traveling and go next door to Department O. And use their jury room. Walk into the jury room there, and as soon as we're ready for you, we'll call you in to this courtroom, and then you'll take the seats in the center section of the courtroom during the time both juries are present. So at this point, then, I assume you might have some stuff inside the jury room. Some of you, if you do, you can collect that material, and we'll excuse you until 10:30 tomorrow morning. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't form any opinions about it. We'll see you back in Department O at 10:30 tomorrow morning. All right, everyone is now present. We have the Lyle Menendez jury in the jury box, and this is where you will be throughout the rest of this week, barring occasions when you're not in the courtroom. And there at this point will be some further examination of the witness.
So remember that there are technically, this is two trials going on at once. There are two juries here. There's the Erik Menendez jury. There's the Lyle Menendez jury. And so depending on what day it is or which witness is testifying, they've got the two juries are in, like, one is in the jury box. Another one is in, like, the front row of the of the seats that are behind the attorneys, and they sort of switch off throughout trial. Or there are some witnesses that'll only be heard by one jury or the other. It's weird. It's so weird. And so, yeah, that discussion just now is just it's so uncommon to try a case like this.
That will relate only to the defendant, Lyle Menendez. That's why we've had the other jury leave, and you are here, and we'll hear this questioning at this point. Before I get into that, let me ask all 18 of you whether any of you have seen, read, or heard anything about this case since the trial has begun.
No.
All right, then let's proceed with the further direct examination of the witness. I'm sorry?
Both defendants for the possession.
Well, just to make things move more quickly, yes. But this only relates to the defendant, Lyle Menendez here.
May I have a question from here, Your Honor?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Goudreau indicated.
Maybe is that mic on so we can hear you?
No, it's not on.
Just,
Turn on.
Thanks.
Mr. Goudreau, I believe you indicated that you and Lyle were very close and that he was very generous. But I think you also indicated in your other testimony that he didn't seem to have a lot of cash. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, the student store at Princeton University, could you tell me what kind of items it sold?
It sold generally everything you would need for classrooms, notebooks and books, and they had a bookstore. But upstairs was a clothing store. You could purchase anything with the Princeton logo on it.
All right, so that would be sweatshirts.
Sweatshirts, hats, jackets.
And so the portion of the store that dealt with class items was where the computers came from. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did they have dressy clothes like sports coats or suits there?
No, they didn't.
And did they have watches there?
Not that I recall.
Now, I believe you indicated that Lyle Menendez was on some, you believe that Lyle was on an allowance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, do you know how much allowance he had per month?
No.
Do you remember when you came back from spring break in California, having some difficulty getting the car out of the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay, what was the difficulty?
We had both been gone for some time, and we took a
Well, buffering. Okay. Come on now. Yeah, well, I guess while that's buffering, let me get some super chats and questions here. Love Dreaming Peach, thanks so much for your super chats. Signorelli said Erik confessed to him 3 months later. Down thumb emoji. Yeah, that was it was interesting, to say the least. And I did not find his testimony to be particularly credible or believable. Oh no.
Do you remember approximately
Okay,
how much?
there we go.
50.
How long did that $50 last?
Several hours.
That was gone?
Gone by that evening, yeah.
Now, at some point while you were living in the room with Lyle, did
Oh man.
he make a comment to you at the end of a telephone call he had with his father?
Okay, let me pause it and it'll hopefully sort of process a little bit further ahead. Let me get some more super chats here. Andy the Game Maker, thanks so much for your super chats. This friendly reminder, Legalbytes promo code still works for Crypto Cartel. There's a link in the description below, along with Legalbytes. If you use that promo code, you can buy a copy of Crypto Cartel. It's a card game, and you can get free shipping. And also, I get a portion back to me as a referral link or a referral commission. So you do help to support this channel, and of course to support Andy the Game Maker with his business with this game. So thanks, Andy, for that. Love Dreaming Peach. Was this guy also rich? No, this guy seems like he was not rich, very much not rich, and working at TGI Fridays nearby Princeton, kind of schmoozing his way into living in the dorms on campus, which is like, that's crazy to me how they were able to do that, or how he was able to do that. Love Dreaming Peach. Were they just friends or more? I don't think that there's been any insinuation that they're anything more than friends, or that they were anything more than friends. So yeah. Ellen, not Sarah Lee, says, but couldn't he say that what the same experiences were? Yes. So you're referring to the fact that they weren't able to ask about what Lyle told him about his dad abusing him, basically. Yes, the attorney that was cross-examining was able to get away with a little bit of like generalities that she can get into, because it's a way of them sort of connecting. So it's not about offering those statements for the truth necessarily, but for their to prove a point of their sort of interaction that was their like amity, I guess, or the source of their amity. But when they start to get into specifics about what Lyle said about his dad, that's when you start to get into a bit more of the nature of that statement starts to be offered more so for the truth of the matter asserted, meaning, testifying about what Lyle's dad did to him, as opposed to the basic point that these two guys kind of bonded over their experiences. Love Dreaming Peach says, do you think the double jury was part reason why the trials were mistrials? Honestly, could be. I'm not sure, because we haven't seen nearly all of the evidence yet. So I don't know. I don't know, because I'm really learning this case along with you guys. If you haven't actually watched this trial before, I haven't seen it myself. So I'm kind of formulating thoughts as I'm going along as well. Jan E. Wallace is how uncommon is it to have both trials going on at the same time? Very, very, very uncommon. It is very rare. I have never seen anything like this. So, yes. Okay.
About something his father had done to his mother.
Yes.
And after he hung up the phone, what did he tell you?
I think that we had spoke earlier about his father's relationship with another woman. And I think the phone call triggered something, and he turned and said, I could kill my father for what he did to my mom.
So at that point, when he said, I could kill my father for what he did to my mom, did you feel like he was actually going to go out right then and kill him?
No, not at all.
Okay. Did at that time that he made the statement, did it alarm you?
No.
Okay. But when you said for what he did to my mom, what was the context of that? What was your understanding about what the father had done to him?
From my understanding, his father had another relationship and put his mom under a lot of stress, and she attempted suicide.
Now, during the period of time that you and Lyle were friends, did you and he discuss anything to do with what you wanted to do in the future in terms of making money or business or anything in that regard?
Yes.
Could you describe to the jury the kinds of conversations you had with him?
So many. Just a couple?
Well, generally, what was the theme of these conversations?
The theme, the idea that we had was to just raise quick capital and do some investing, whether it be restaurants or businesses or anything. We had many schemes to come out with some instant cash.
Now, at the time that you were living in Princeton,
Sounds a
were you
little sketchy.
familiar with a restaurant called Chuck's Spring Street Cafe?
Yes.
And could you tell me what kind of restaurant it was?
It was a little local college hangout that served really, really hot wings and just sodas and stuff.
Did Lyle ever express any interest in that restaurant to you?
Yes, he did.
Okay, what did he tell you about Chuck's Spring Street Cafe?
Well, we were having a lunch one time, and Gus, who I was under the assumption he was the manager.
Okay, let me just interrupt for a second. A man named Gus, G-U-S?
Yes.
Okay, and what did Gus do or say?
Gus came over and he was very friendly with Lyle, and Lyle spoke of his impending trip to California, and that Gus said, I can't wait to get out of this cold weather, and Lyle said that he would look for a place out there, and we started talking about maybe franchising Gus. It was a great concept in California. So we had spoken to him about, he wanted to get out of Princeton area, and we wanted to do business, and we had similar goals.
After you left Princeton in the spring of 1989, by the way, how far is it from Princeton to New York City?
It's about an hour drive.
And after you left, did you ever return to Princeton?
Yes, I did.
When and for how long?
It must have been the spring of 1990, after all the reports and the murders came out.
Okay, now let me just ask you the next question, okay? Was this before or after he'd been arrested, Lyle had been arrested?
After.
Okay, thank you, I have nothing further.
Any cross-examination on this?
Yes, Sean.
So we've got a recross.
In the, this store at the university, is this a small shop or is it a big building?
It's a pretty good sized place.
And downstairs, do they have food for sale?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Do they have a travel agency?
Yes, it is.
And in terms of the clothing they sell, do they sell shirts like the shirt that Lyle's wearing?
Yeah, they would sell a sweater like that, but it'd have a little Princeton logo on them.
And they sell a shirt like the shirt he's wearing?
Not really like that, no. More like paraphernalia for Princeton campus.
Okay. And what, do they sell shoes? And
Gosh, I don't remember if they had shoes or not.
were you in there very often?
We'd gone there several times, but we always had something in mind. We went there and we never browsed.
Okay. When you would shop in that store, would Lyle use a credit card or sign for it, or would he use cash?
He would use his campus ID and sign for things.
Okay. And did you eat in restaurants with him ever?
Yes, I did.
And would he use cash or would he use credit cards?
His credit card wasn't good, so we always used cash.
So you never saw him use a credit card?
One time we tried to use the credit card.
Okay. But on no other occasions?
No.
And did you pay for your own meals or did he pay for you?
It went back and forth. When I had money, I paid for my own and his if I had money. And if I didn't, he would take care of
Who paid more often?
it. He did.
So when he got the $50 from his grandmother, I take it he had to use the money to get the car?
We used the money originally for 2 train tickets to get down to Princeton. He had to be in English by 9:30. We arrived at 6:30. His grandmother picked us up a little after 7, and we were trying to get down there in time.
Would it be fair to say that when he had money, he spent it?
Yes.
And did he buy presents for people, for his girlfriends or whatever? If you know.
No, not that I know.
And Mrs. Bazanich asked you about the comment about he could kill his dad. Was there anything about that comment that made you think he was going to go out and kill his father?
No, but it showed that he was pretty hurt over what had happened to his mother, but I took it very lightly.
Okay, so is it the same as people who say, oh, I could kill my neighbor for doing this or my teacher for doing that? It's just a comment?
Yes.
And it wasn't actually a threat?
No.
Okay. And did he take you with him to his grandfather's gravesite
Yes, he did.
one time? Was it cold?
Very cool.
And how long were you there?
3-4 hours.
And was he talking about his family history and the responsibility of being a child of people with this kind of a heritage?
Yes, we'd just come from his grandmother's house. We were driving back to Princeton, and he stopped by there. And at his grandmother's house, we'd gone over all the old photo albums and their history coming from Cuba. And so that was what was on his mind. And we stopped by his grandfather's grave, and he told me how much he missed his grandfather and what a great influence he was on him. And then he spoke of his father.
And the photo albums, whose idea was it for you to go through all the old photo albums?
Lyle's.
And why did he want you to go through the photo albums?
He just wanted me to know the history of the family and where they came from and the type of people they were.
Did he seem to want you to be close and to know a lot about him?
Yes.
Thank you. I've nothing further.
Any further direct?
No, no.
All right. All right, we'll take a recess then at this time, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll resume tomorrow let me ask, is there going to be a need for a hearing in regards to Mr. Stevens before his testimony?
Yes.
How long will that take?
5 minutes.
Okay. All right, we'll have you come back then, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, report to this courtroom. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't form any opinions about it. And it's also very important that you not speculate or wonder or be concerned about any of the proceedings that took place involving the other defendant and the other jury. Your decision must be made only on the evidence that's presented to you in regards to the defendant, Lyle Menendez, and the evidence that you hear in this courtroom and the instructions I give you on the law. So we'll be in recess tomorrow until 9 o'clock and report back to this courtroom, and we'll resume at 9 o'clock. And thank you all very much. While we're still in session, I'll permit counsel to make inquiry outside the presence of the jury in regards to the area, Ms. Lansing, that you had discussed at the sidebar.
Mr. Goudreau, did you have a conversation with Lyle Menendez in a Chinese restaurant one evening?
Yes.
And can you tell me what that conversation was?
I think what you're referring to was towards the end of my stay at Princeton. We had dinner at a Chinese food restaurant late at night. School was coming to a close. There was a lot of pressure on him. And we were talking about our plans for the summer and the future. And all the chairs were up and the tables around us, and they were just waiting for us to leave. And we just talked about, he started.
Let me ask a question.
Okay.
Did you reveal something about your own background of a personal nature
Yes, I did.
to Lyle? And did he, in response to that, reveal something to you about his and his brother's background?
No.
Did he ever tell you that he and his brother had been molested by their father?
No, he didn't.
Have you ever told me that?
I can't recall that I have.
Have you ever told anyone else that?
I can't recall that I have.
You don't remember whether you've ever told me or anyone else that Lyle Menendez told you that he and his brother were molested by their father in a Chinese restaurant?
I told him I was molested as a child. He never told me he was.
He never said anything to you of that nature?
No.
And you have never told anybody that he said anything of that nature? Is that true or not true?
It's true that I never told anybody that I said that. I was under the assumption that by his reaction that he had had problems, but it was only an assumption.
And it is your testimony here that you have never told anyone that he told you of this incident with his parents, with his father?
No, never told anybody.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Goudreau, did you ever have an interview with a reporter in this case on tape in which you made that statement?
I interviewed with Bob Rand, was the only reporter I interviewed on tape, so.
You've interviewed with a number of reporters in this case, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
How many? Who have you been interviewed by in this case?
Bob Rand, Ron Sobel, and some gentleman from the US 1 newspaper in the Princeton area.
Okay. And is it your testimony that you have never in any of those interviews made this statement?
I can't recall that I have, no.
Don't you think you would remember if you had?
Oh, sure.
So is it your testimony that you haven't?
It's my testimony that I haven't.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
On other issues.
Yeah, but as far as this witness is concerned, anything further?
No, you
Okay, we'll excuse you today, but I understand they want you back tomorrow until at least the conclusion of the testimony regarding another witness. So your order to remain until excused tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, and you can leave the courtroom now.
Great.
Okay. And there are some scheduling matters we can discuss and other procedural matters that we can discuss with counsel. And schedule-wise, the next witness for the prosecution is Mr. Stevens or Mr. Wenskowski or
Wenskowski, the next witness, is a brief matter, I believe. Do you want to bring him down, Mr. Burt?
Well, there are several issues in the nature of 402 objections.
In regards to Mr. Wenskowski.
All
Okay. Yes, if you'd like to do it now, we can.
right, Chairman.
Let me get my notes regarding his grand jury testimony.
There are several areas that we are objecting to. The first falls under the general category of spending spree evidence, and as the court knows, we have pending a motion to be made to the court, and the court has reserved ruling as to specifics other than the Rolex watch purpose.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that last portion was not in front of the jury. I'm not sure. My focus may have been, I may have gotten distracted for a minute there, but I think that wasn't in front of the jury. Now we're gonna get into this like a whole like hour-long hearing of back and forth between the parties, not in front of the jury. So we're gonna skip over that, and we are going to actually head into the next witness. Okay. So, and before we do that, I will get some questions here that I see in the chat about this one. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So, okay. Tally says, question in the chat, people are saying he's lying about not saying anything about the SA. Why aren't they impeaching him? They may have been surprised at him testifying the way that he testified. So, okay. So thank you, Shireen, so he sent the jury out first. So that was just to confirm about Lyle telling him about the SA. Interesting. So if he was saying elsewhere, if he was saying elsewhere about this conversation that he had with Lyle, and then that was documented somewhere, that could be used to impeach him. But I guess the reason, then I guess that would explain why they didn't impeach him here with it, is because it's not in front of the jury. This is just in front of the judge. Then they could probably tell the judge in this back and forth about his testimony continuing on, because I do believe they end up calling him back if I'm not mistaken. They can bring him back and then ask him the questions and then impeach him on it as well. So yeah, Ellen Not Sarah Lee says, I thought Lyle's jury was still there. I thought that they were all sent out before this. I might be mistaken though. Okay. So, okay. I hope that answers your questions. Let's continue on here. Okay.
Robert Rand, R-A-N-D.
Oops, wrong one.
Mr. Ray, what is your felony, please?
I'm a freelance journalist.
Are you familiar with the Shield law?
Yes, I am.
And did you play a portion of an audio tape of an interview between yourself and Mr. Goudreau last night on Channel 9 News?
Yes, I did.
Do you have a copy of the tape with you today?
Yes, I do.
Is that a tape of the entire conversation you had with Mr. Goudreau?
Yes, it is.
How long is the tape?
Well, actually, our interview was over 2 different days, and there's about 2.5 hours of tape.
All right, do you have 2.5 hours with you today?
No, I do not.
All right, how long would it take you to get all 2.5 hours?
I would have to return to my office, which is about a 40-minute drive away.
Okay. The portion of the tape that you have today, how much of the 2.5 hours is it?
It's about 1 hour.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, I have not heard the tape. I understand. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Rand. You played part of this tape from Ms. Lansing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And when was it you played her the tape?
It was in, approximately, I believe sometime in May or maybe the end of April of 1993.
So that was this year.
Yes.
Did you also play portions of the tape from anyone from the team of Mr. Erik Menendez?
No.
Okay. Now, what was your purpose in playing the tape from Ms. Lansing?
I am writing a book for Simon & Schuster, and in the course of my research, I interview many different people. So I was trying to do some research about some of the topics that were raised by Mr. Goudreau, And so I approached Ms. Lansing and asked for an off-the-record interview regarding some of the information in my interview.
Did you ever come to the prosecution with the same information and ask for comment?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Because I understood that the prosecution was not doing interviews. I had spoken to Mike Petula a number of times and asked for interviews with the prosecution. I was told they were not doing interviews until after the trial.
Do you remember interviewing me?
Yes,
Okay, and do you remember during that interview, you told me that the prosecution had a better witness, and I think it was Craig Signorelli? Remember? Do you remember
Yes.
telling me that? You remember me asking you who that witness was?
yes,
Remember you telling me you wouldn't tell me?
that's correct.
Okay, but you did make this information available to the defense, is that correct?
Which information are you speaking of?
About Donovan Goudreau,
Which specific information?
the tape.
I didn't play an entire tape. I played a very small portion of a tape.
How much money are you getting for writing this book?
We're not going to object to this. I think this is really irrelevant and not the case.
All right, objection sustained.
Okay, Mr. Rand, how come you never played that for the prosecution?
I'm going to make the same objection. It's irrelevant. How come?
Objection overruled.
I was told that I approached the press information officer for the district attorney's office and had asked a number of times since my return to California last year for interviews with with yourself and with Mr. Kuriyama, and was told that interviews were not available.
Did you tell any of those people the kind of information that you have on the Donovan Goudreau?
No,
So you just asked generally for an interview, is that correct?
that's correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask for access to the tape. I don't know if it's appropriate to take the first time to play the entire tape, but before we conclude with Mr. Goudreau and send him on his way, I would like to hear the entire tape. And not only the one that's here in court today, but the other hour and a half that Mr. Rand has.
Well, let's get some more information about what this tape is, how it was created, and what's on it.
All right, the 2.5 hours that you have taped was, I believe, you indicated given over a period of 2 days, is that correct?
That's correct.
What portion of the 2.5 hours deals with the area of abuse, be it sexual or physical?
I would say it's about 5 minutes.
Okay, is that part of the portion, or the portion that was on television last night, part of this 5 minutes?
The portion that was on television was approximately 15 seconds out of that 5 minutes.
All right, do you have that particular part of the tape cue?
No, I do not.
All right, could you find it if I gave you a tape recorder for 5 minutes?
Yes?
All right, may I approach, please?
Yes. Well, let's not do it now. We can go ahead and ask other questions.
All right, now, I believe you indicated, and I don't have a transcript of what was on television, but is it your contention that that Mr. Goudreau told you that the defendants have been sexually abused?
Yes.
All right, now, in the portion of the tape that we viewed, it appears that you were asking him a number of leading questions, is that correct?
I asked him a number of questions. That's what a reporter does.
All right, and if those questions, then you would not characterize as leading, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. This is just argumentative.
Overruled. Overruled.
You can answer the question.
Could you repeat the question?
You would not characterize the questions you asked of Mr. Goudreau, which were played on Channel 9 News, as leading, is that correct?
No, it was in the context of an anecdote he was telling me about Lyle Menendez complaining about Jose Menendez sexually abusing Erik and Lyle.
All right, and that was contained in a portion that was on television?
That's correct.
What was your motivation in going to Channel 9 News last night?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
Overruled.
Why did you do it?
It was Mr. Goudreau had been a witness, and it was a newsworthy event. And they asked if they knew I had some information and asked if they could interview me.
Were you interested in garnering publicity for your upcoming book?
No, I wasn't, Ms. Bazanich. My book will not be released until probably next spring or summer. So I have nothing to gain by doing an interview. A number of reporters have asked to interview me because of my experience of spending almost 4 years researching this story.
You have a financial interest in the outcome of this case, don't you?
I'm a reporter and I work for a living.
And you have a financial interest in the outcome of the case.
No,
Do you have other interviews of other prosecution witnesses that you would provide to us?
no.
You
As
have-
a reporter, I will stand behind the California Shield Law and do not wish to reveal unpublished material.
Do you in fact have interviews with other witnesses for the prosecution in this case?
Yes,
And you are refusing to give that to the prosecution, is that correct?
yes.
Why is it you will give information to the defense and not the prosecution?
I didn't give information. What I was doing was an interview. In the course of an interview, sometimes you reveal information. It's the same thing that I believe prosecutors and police do, that sometimes you reveal information to gain other information. That is what I was doing.
Are you a police officer?
No, I'm a
Yes, Your
reporter.
Honor, this is just argumentative.
All right, so let's get back to what I said.
All right,
How was this tape generated, circumstances of it, that sort of thing.
where were you when you had this conversation with Mr. Goudreau?
In his apartment in New York City.
And, did he consent to the interview with you?
Yes, he did.
And did he know it was being taped recorded?
Yes, the tape recorder was on the table.
What were you doing when you were interviewing him? What was your purpose in interviewing him?
My purpose in interviewing him was in the course of the research for my book for Simon & Schuster. I have interviewed over 300 people. Mr. Goudreau was one of those 300 people.
So the purpose of your interviewing was in preparation for,
In research for my book, I interviewed Mr. Goudreau.
and you were working exclusively on your book at that point.
That's correct. I signed a contract with Simon & Schuster in October of 1991.
All right, so you were working on the book gathering information, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and aside from what was on television last night, what else did Mr. Goudreau tell you about this area of sexual abuse?
I do not wish to go into unpublished material.
Yeah, the California Shield Law is basically what protects his confidential sources for his journalistic work.
It appears to me that you can't waive pardon at all.
Well, let's get to some specifics here. Would you play 5 minutes for the people on Channel 9 News?
No, I played 20 seconds.
Okay, and that's all you played for the people at Channel 9.
That's correct.
How much did you play for the defense?
Approximately, I'm not sure, it was maybe about 8 to 10 minutes. I don't recall exactly.
All right, that 8 to 10 minutes include this portion that was played on television last night.
Yes, it did.
All right, and the conversation you had more recently with Mr. Goudreau, was that tape recorded?
No, it was not.
And did you go into the specifics with Mr. Goudreau of your testimony in regards to alleged statement made to him by Lyle Menendez being molested?
I don't wish to go into that. It's unpublished material, and it deals with a source.
All right, the source being Mr. Goudreau,
Correct.
the same source that you disclosed to the world on Channel 9 News last night.
I disclosed a very limited portion of information.
All right, and you feel that you qualify under the California Shield Law?
Yes, I do.
All right, and is your lawyer en route to argue that matter?
He is in court this morning, but he would be available after lunch.
And what is your lawyer's name?
Tony Glassman.
All right, well, I'll permit counsel to
Care Bear, yeah, I think
arrive and argue the
it's not
matter,
from here.
Regarding.
I'm pretty sure it's from the hallway in the courtroom.
I was just served with a subpoena at 10 minutes of 9 this morning, so I had no possibility of notifying him in advance.
Well, based upon what you did last night, it certainly wouldn't have been a surprise that you would be a witness today, or based upon the nature of the examination yesterday, it wouldn't have been a surprise if you'd be a witness today, and one could have anticipated this event occurring. But I'll permit Mr. Rand to obtain counsel to represent him on this matter, since the potential is that he is to be ordered to disclose this material, and if not, be subject to contempt. So, number one, I'll order you to appear back here at 1:30 with all of the tape, not just the 1 hour that you brought here, but all of the tape of Mr. Goudreau's conversation with you and with your counsel. All right. Okay. Any further questions of Mr. Rand at this point?
Nothing further. Not at this point, Your Honor.
Okay, and Mr. Rand will be ordered to be returned at 1:30. You are excluded from the courtroom since you are a witness and or potential witness, and ordered to return at 1:30.
Interesting.
Glenn Stevens.
Okay, so to clarify, that was not in front of the jury. So there was a question earlier about why would they have a, let's see, Ellen Natsarali said, why would you have another witness without a jury? The reason is sometimes they have to go through a series of questions for the witness before they determine a certain line of questioning that they can ask this witness, for example. So they'll do this in front of the judge outside of the presence of the jury. and basically to like quality control what sort of information this person is going to be testifying to see if that is proper to be testified in front of the jury. So this is an example of that, the question of whether or not he can be compelled to play what is on a recording because of the California Shield law, which, like I said, is basically what protects news people from having to disclose their confidential sources or to surrender unpublished information like notes and recordings and things like that, and up until they have made them public through their through their publishing. So I haven't litigated this issue before. My anticipation is it's a pretty strong rule because there's a pretty strong policy reason for protecting these kinds of sources for journalism and journalistic integrity and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's basically the California Shield law. Tally wants to know how ironclad is the Shield law. Like I said, I haven't litigated it, but I'm pretty sure it's my understanding is it's a pretty strong rule, unless they have waived it in some way. So like the question here was whether or not he's waived it by playing a portion of the recording for the news, right? There was a 20-second clip that he played. This is like a 2-hour long conversation. So there's a bit of a question there as to whether or not he has waived it. Arguably he's waived it as to the 20 seconds, but the question is, does it expand beyond that? Which I anticipate his attorney will be coming in the afternoon. They'll have an argument in front of the judge. Judge will make a ruling. Tally says, question, people in the chat are saying he's lying about not saying about the SA. Why aren't they impeaching him? So I saved this question, and I'm glad that I did, even though I kind of addressed it earlier. One reason is because this would be the impeaching information, right? It's the conversation with Goudreau about this stuff, right? So he has it on his recordings, but the question is, can he be compelled to present that in court, because he is a journalist and he's protected by the California Shield law. So some legal issues here for sure to be getting through. Love During Impeach says, question, why did Donovan lie about Lyle telling him about SA? I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know. Then Ahsoka Toa says, so I'm assuming his work was published. Do we need to see this? Do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean by do we need to see this? Or do you mean is the court entitled to it? Because if it's published, if it's been published, then yeah, like there's nothing to hide, right? Because it's already been published. But if it's not, and he's still working on a book that he's been writing, that's something that he can't necessarily be compelled. Yeah, can't exactly be compelled to do. Okay. Right. So let's continue on here. Okay.
Spell your last name, please.
Stevens. Right?
Mr. Stevens, you were a friend of Lyle Menendez's at Princeton University starting in the spring of 1989, is that correct?
Yes.
And you continued to be his friend probably up until July or August of 1990, is that correct?
Yes.
In conjunction with your knowledge of this case, have you ever been interviewed by a reporter named Bob Rand?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you see Mr. Rand at the courtroom?
Yes.
Did Mr. Rand ever tell you any information about any kind of sexual abuse or physical abuse in this case?
Well, no, he just had told me a story about Erik and Lyle having taken baths with their father when they were very young.
Oh.
And he had made it explicitly clear that it was nothing inappropriate, that they were very young. And he said, well, I've taken showers with my father when I was young, and I'm sure you have. And that's the impression that I was given when told this story.
Okay, so Mr. Rand told you this information, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you ever hear that information from Lyle Menendez while you were his friend?
No.
Did you ever impart that information to anyone?
Yes, I've spoken about it a few times with Donovan Goudreau.
All right. Have you and Donovan ever specifically discussed the allegations or the idea that Mr. Menendez sexually or physically abused his children? I don't mean in the last 2 days. I mean before coming to California for this testimony.
Well, we had heard rumors, so we had discussed it, yes. We discussed the whole case at length on several occasions. So, yes, I do remember talking about it, but not specific.
So you have spoken about the topic of sexual abuse with Mr. Goudreau, is that correct?
Yes.
Did Mr. Goudreau ever tell you that Lyle Menendez had informed him that Lyle or his brother had been sexually abused by the father?
No, he did not.
And do you have any recollection of specifically discussing this bathing incident with Donovan Goudreau?
Yes, I remember specifically discussing it with him, but I cannot remember when or where, in what context it was discussed.
I have nothing further.
Ross?
Mr. Stevens, you said that you had heard rumors with regard to the sexual abuse of Lyle and Erik. Is that correct?
Yes.
And from whom had you heard these rumors?
Well, Bob Rand had told me about this bathing incident, and like I said, he didn't say anything that it was inappropriate, but I think that spawned some news reports about the possibility of sexual.
Hold on a second.
And I believe Dominic Dunn had written an article that I read in Vanity Fair where it discussed the possibility of such things.
Okay, so the sources, when you said that you'd heard rumors about sexual abuse, you're talking about Dominic Dunn's Vanity Fair article, which was published in 1990,
Yes.
in which there's an indication that Lyle had been abused by his father.
Yes.
Is that correct? And an incident that Bob Rand had shared with you about them bathing as children with their father, which he indicated there was nothing inappropriate about. Is that correct?
Correct.
And had you heard any other rumors about sexual abuse?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And you said that you and Donovan then discussed these rumors. Is that correct?
Yes.
And on how many occasions did you and Donovan discuss these rumors?
I have no idea. I can definitely recall on one occasion, but I can't remember if it was discussed more than once or not.
And what is the occasion you definitely recall?
Donovan and I worked together in a restaurant in New York called Boxers, and one night we were up late and we were up late one night discussing the case, and that's where I believe we discussed it.
And who offered what information?
Well, I told Donovan that Bob Rand had told me about this incident with. See, I had gotten the impression from Bob Rand that Erik had told him this story. And so I just discussed that Erik had said something in an interview about that bathing incident, and maybe that's where Dominic Dunn had gotten his information from.
And this is a conversation you and Donovan had.
Yes, correct.
And was there any other discussion in that?
No, I think that was the extent of it.
Were you talking about, gee, this seems like it could be true, or it doesn't make sense, or relating other incidents?
I said, gee, I had never heard anything about sexual abuse, and now this Dominic Dunn article is out, and perhaps you got that from this little incident that Bob Rand had told me about.
And do you remember having your photograph taken for the Los Angeles Times magazine with Donovan?
Yes, in Chuck's Spring Street Cafe. That's correct.
And do you remember having a discussion with him at that time about sexual abuse? And
Oh,
whether
his
it
ties Paisley
had
too. I
affected
just
you, or
realized.
what you knew,
I don't recall if we discussed it again on that occasion.
but you did discuss it on other occasions.
Yes.
And would you say you talked about it 2, 3, 4 times? How many times would you?
Like I said, I only specifically recall discussing it once, and it's possible that it was discussed on other occasions, but I don't have any specific recollection.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dunn.
That was
Anything
very
further this
short.
time?
No, not at this time, no.
You want to clean up the back row there and bring anybody else as witnesses? or-
No, I think, no.
All right, are you ready to proceed with testimony of Mr. Wenskowski?
Yes, Your Honor, there's one issue, and that was on the tape recording. Remember Mr. Burt brought that up yesterday.
Because we're out.
Yeah, the tape recording in regards to what?
The telephone conversation that.
Yeah, there was some issues that both sides wanted to research on that, and
Yes, I'm waiting for a fax from the AG's office in New Jersey as to the wiretap laws there. I spoke with a man who says he was a deputy AG, and he said he faxed me. I don't know if it's here yet, but my understanding is what the law is. Mr. Wenskowski also used to be a police officer in the state of New Jersey. He was familiar with the laws. So I don't know if the court wants to wait on that until we.
well, why don't you check to see if it's arrived?
Okay,
All
well,
right, let's take a short break and let you do that, and then you can let the clerk know if you've gotten any more information.
all right, and in addition, I believe the court talked about the issue of the Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights.
Yes.
And I don't, the only Fifth Amendment rights are.
Well, let's carry it on after you get the information about the.
Oh, okay, but I think that goes to Mr. Stevens, actually. not
Okay.
Mr. Wenskowski.
All right.
Okay, so I'll go see what I can find out.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see the
Well,
court later.
It'll be a 10-minute break.
That was a
Lyle
quick 10-minute
Menendez
break.
and his lawyers are present, as well as the prosecution. And before the next witness testifies, Mr. Wenskowski, counsel had some issues you wanted to further discuss. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor, I provided the court with a rather lengthy copy and also counsel of statutes from the state of New Jersey. I was sent this by a prosecutor there, gave me the shortcut version of how to work this package.
Okay.
I have a copy.
I'm going to skip ahead
I do, and in looking at it, it seems to
because his testimony is actually going to begin a little bit
we'll
later.
get the jurors out and the witness in.
Shall I call the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, please. The jury is in the courtroom.
Finally,
Call
jury's
the
back in the
witness.
courtroom.
People call Mr. Richard Wenskowski to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. If you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give in the content in before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please take the stand and state your name for the record.
There's the
My name is
mustache
Richard
of the day.
Please state your-
Mustache and paisley.
Wenskoski.
It's got
All right,
mustache
and we're
and
now
paisley. There
proceeding
we
in
go.
the case of people versus Lyle Menendez. The jury is in the jury box. Belated good morning to you all. Sorry for the delay, but some matters have arisen that caused us to be a little late this morning with you, and I apologize for that. Before we get started with testimony, just a couple of things I'd like to discuss with you. First of all, have any of you seen any television stories about this case, or read any newspaper articles, or heard any radio broadcasts, or heard any discussions or conversations about this case in the last, since the trial started? Anybody? If you do, would you raise your hand? Okay. All right. Also, just to reinforce what I've said before, do not have any contact with any of the parties involved in the case. We have a lot of witnesses in the hallway and interested people involved in the case who are in the hallway at recesses, and also the lawyers are going to be in the hallway or in the elevators or downstairs, whatever. Don't have any contact with them. Don't even initiate a conversation or start a conversation with them, because even the most innocent type of conversation can be misconstrued. If you were to be seen talking to the lawyers for one side or a witness for one side, everyone would get the impression that maybe you're showing favoritism towards one side over the other. So just avoid any contact with anybody involved in the case. All right. You may question the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wenskowski, what do you do for a living right now?
I'm Director of Security for a food service company.
And in August and September of 1989, did you also work in security?
Yes,
Did you work for a different company from the one you work for now?
yes, I did.
What was the name of the company that you worked for in August and September of 1989?
DB Kelly Associates.
And what kind of company was that? What kind of services were provided by D.B. Kelly?
It was a private investigational company along with a guard service company.
Is that a guard service? Is that what you said?
Yes,
Bodyguards?
yes,
Prior to working at D.B. Kelly, did you have any law enforcement experience?
yes, I have.
Could you explain to us what it was?
I was an Edison police officer for 15 years and a police officer in Middlesex County, New Jersey for 3 years.
What is Edison?
Township of New Jersey.
So you had 18 years of law enforcement experience before you went into the security business?
Yes, ma'am.
And was DB Kelly your first security job?
No, I worked for Salem and Associates before DB Kelly.
Back in August of 1989, were you employed to provide bodyguard services for someone?
Yes, I did.
Was that a young man?
Yes.
You see him in court here today?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you indicate to the jury and the judge where he's seated today?
He's sitting at the table to my left, wearing a white striped shirt, no tie.
Identifying the defendant Lyle Menendez.
Thank you. Mr. Wenskowski, do you remember precisely the day it was that you started to provide bodyguard services for Mr. Menendez?
I believe it was approximately August the 28th or 29th.
Were you aware that at some point that the parents of Mr. Menendez had been killed in California?
Yes.
Were you aware that there
Okay, we're back. Hang on here. Hopefully I didn't lose things. Okay. Yeah, I see in the chat folks are saying that it's frozen for them. Hopefully this comes back. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I had a connectivity issue there for a second. Okay. I'm going to go back just about like 5 or 10 seconds on this testimony. Okay. We're back. Sharing screens. There we go. Okay. There we go. All's well.
Yes.
did you begin your bodyguard services for Mr. Lyle Menendez before, during, or after the memorial service?
It was after the memorial service.
And could you explain to me what kind of services you provided for Mr. Menendez?
We,
No, wait. You say we. Who's we?
I also had a partner,
And what was your partner's name?
John Aquaro.
Is that Aquaro?
Yes.
Okay, what did you and Mr. Aquaro do?
We bodyguarded Lyle for approximately a week or so. We spent 24 hours a day with him.
At the time that you were providing bodyguard services for him, were you armed with a weapon?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of weapon did you have?
A Browning 9mm.
And that was carried with you at all times, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I'm a little concerned or confused. If it was 24 hours a day, did you sleep?
Yes, we did. We had adjoining rooms with Lyle
Okay, now, where did you have these adjoining rooms?
at the Princeton Hyatt.
Okay, so that's a typical Hyatt hotel?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And during the course of this time with Mr. Menendez, where did you go with him?
We went shopping. We went to the U.S. Open. We went looking at homes, cars.
When you say the U.S. Open, is that the U.S. Open tennis tournament?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you, in fact, attend that tennis tournament Labor Day weekend with Lyle Menendez?
Yes.
Do you remember what day of the week it was that you went to the U.S. Open?
No, I don't recall.
And so were you with him continually during this, I think you said 7 or 8 day period? Was there any period of time you weren't with him?
There was approximately a day and a half I was not with him.
Now, during that day and a half, can you remember why it was that you weren't with him?
I went home to my family, and the president of the company, Dennis Kelly, stood in for me.
Was there also another occasion in which Mr. Menendez was taken to the airport in your company?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
That was approximately August the 30th, I believe.
All right, could you explain to us what happened?
Lyle told me he had to fly back to Los Angeles and to see his brother, and something about a will on a computer.
Okay, so what is the best of your recollection as to the conversation he had with you before leaving as to the will on the computer?
He said he had to meet with his brother, and they had his brother was finding somebody out in California to do something with a will on a computer.
Okay, was he any more specific with you than that at that time?
No, he wasn't, no.
Okay. So where did you then go?
Then we left, and Lyle flew out to California.
Do you remember from which airport he flew to California?
Newark.
Newark?
Newark.
Okay. Mr. Wenskowski,
Newark.
when was the next time you saw Lyle in terms of hours after you saw him off at Newark Airport?
He flew back the next morning. I met him at the airport.
And then you returned to the Princeton area?
Yes.
Approximately how far is it from Princeton to Newark?
40 miles.
Okay, now this may be a silly question, but are you a New Jersey native?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Wenskowski, when you were traveling with Lyle during this period of time, minus the day and a half, in what method, what means did you travel?
Lyle was in a limousine, and most of the time I was in a vehicle behind the limousine.
Okay, what was the purpose of you being in a vehicle behind the limousine?
That was sort of like a crash vehicle.
What's a crash vehicle?
Well, if somebody attempted to harm Lyle while we were in traffic or on the roadway, we always had a second vehicle. If something happened to the limousine, we had a second vehicle to take Lyle out of the area.
Okay, so that was a security precaution, is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Right. While you were with Lyle Menendez, did he ever tell you why it was he wanted a bodyguard?
Yes, he did.
Okay, what did he tell you?
He said that his parents were murdered by either the cartel or the mob.
Okay.
And he was in fear of his life.
Right. Now, when you say the cartel, what was your understanding of what the cartel was?
My understanding was the South American drug cartel or drug mob.
And when he used the word mob, did that mean to you the Cosa Nostra?
That's what I took it to be, yes.
Okay. In regards to that, did you take any special precautions to protect yourself?
Yes.
What did you do?
We had we purchased bulletproof vests. And
Now, did you purchase bulletproof vests just for this job?
yes, ma'am.
So prior to that, in your experience as a bodyguard, you hadn't used one?
No.
Returning to when you went to the airport to pick up Mr. Menendez after he'd been gone, did he make any comments to you about how the trip had gone in California?
Yes, I asked him how everything worked out in California. He says everything was fine, Rich.
Right. I believe you indicated during the period of time that you were guarding him that one of your activities was shopping. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever shop for any vehicles?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you describe what you did in that regard, please?
We went to a Porsche dealer located on Route 1 in the Princeton area, at which time Lyle was looking at a white Porsche convertible.
Did you ever see him or did you ever go with him while he test drove a Porsche?
Yes, we
All right.
went for a test drive.
All right. For about how long did you go for the test drive?
15 minutes.
Okay. And who was driving?
Lyle was.
Okay. Did he appear to know how to drive the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did he break any speed laws?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you actually see him close the purchase of the Porsche?
No.
Did you do any other shopping involving real estate?
Yes, we
Love
went
Dreaming
to a
Beach. I
housing
think this was all for
development,
appearances.
in the Princeton area, where we looked at patio homes.
Okay, now what's a patio home as far as you understand it?
Patio home is a dwelling that is right next to another home, so to speak. They only have little yards in the front and maybe a little side yard in the back. And it was a two-story home.
Okay, so they would be attached to other homes on both sides?
Yes, or at least on one side, and
Okay.
there'd be a wall in between.
Did Mr. Menendez have any discussion with you about whether or not he wanted to buy one of these patio homes?
Yes, he brought me into the home and asked me if I liked it, and we looked around the house.
Now, in regards to the Porsche, did Mr. Menendez ever ask you your opinion about the Porsche?
Yes, he did.
What kind of discussions did you have generally?
Generally, when he looked at things, he asked my opinion. If I liked them, would it be good for him, and do you think he would enjoy it?
Did he ever tell you why it was he was asking your opinion about these things?
Later on, during the time I spent with him, he said that I kind of reminded him of his dad. He said I was kind of about the same age, and he looked at me as a father figure.
Did you ever see Mr. Menendez wearing any kind of wristwatch?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you remember what kind it was?
It was a Rolex.
Now, during this period of time, did you ever meet his brother, Erik Menendez?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so your contact was solely with Lyle Menendez, is that correct?
Yes.
The Rolex, could you describe it for me, please?
It was a gold watch, gold band with I believe a gold face. Look, a regular Rolex.
And so you'd seen Rolexes before this occasion, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I believe you indicated that you carried a weapon during this period of time, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you ever have any discussions with Lyle Menendez about weapons and ballistics and things like that?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you relate to us approximately when it was? And we'll use the trip to the trip out of Newark as the before or after point. The discussion you had with him about weapons, was that before or after the trip to Newark Airport?
After.
Okay, and what was said to you by Mr. Menendez, and what did you respond?
Well, we were getting ready for dinner one night, and he was looking at the weapon, and he asked me if you can get ballistics off of a pistol. And I said yes. And then he asked me if you can get them off of a shotgun, and I said no.
Okay, and so your understanding at the time when you made that response is that you cannot get ballistics off a shotgun,
Yes, ma'am.
but you're not a ballistics expert, correct?
No, ma'am.
This was from your experience as having been a police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, why was it that you felt the necessity of buying a bulletproof vest?
Was due to the type of crimes that were committed against his parents, how many times they were shot, and it was worse than an execution type murder. It was almost like a message trying to be sent.
Now, who gave you this information? Was it Lyle Menendez or someone else?
Lyle gave me some of the information, and my boss at the time, D.B. Kelly, gave me the other information.
And now, did Lyle Menendez ever indicate to you that he was in fear of someone that you should guard him from?
Yes.
Okay, what generally did he tell you about that?
He figured that him and his brother were in severe danger because of if they did that to his parents, they're going to try to do the same thing to him and his brother.
And it was he that gave you the idea that it was someone in the cartel or the mob, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during the period of time that you were bodyguarding Mr. Lyle Menendez, did you ever see him in the company of a friend of his named Glenn Stevens?
Yes.
Okay, and is Mr. Stevens out in the hallway?
Yes, he is.
And you recognize him from having seen him in August and September of 1989?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you ever go shopping for any other kind of vehicles?
No.
Did you ever, were you ever asked by Mr. Menendez to get you prices for any other kind of vehicles?
Yes.
Could you tell us what Mr. Menendez told you in this regard, please?
He wanted a price on a bulletproof limousine.
And did you, in fact, try to obtain prices for a bulletproof limousine?
Yes, I passed that information on to my superior, and he looked into it. He was looking into it, into purchasing a limo.
Did you ever get back to Mr. Lyle Menendez about the purchase of a bulletproof limousine?
Not during the time, no.
Okay.
No.
Now, at some point, I believe your employment was terminated. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did Mr. Lyle Menendez ever tell you why it was that your services were no longer required?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and do you remember the date that this occurred? Well, let me ask you this. Let me back up. You indicated you went to the U.S. Open. Was that over Labor Day weekend?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Was it sometime after Labor Day weekend that your employment was terminated?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember what day of the week it was?
Day of the week, I believe it was a Wednesday.
All right.
I believe it was a Wednesday.
So that would have been the Wednesday after Labor Day of 1989.
Yes.
And what did Mr. Lyle Menendez tell you about why your services were no longer required?
He said that his uncle had contacted somebody in New York City and a mob figure, I believe that was the exact term he used. His uncle went to see somebody in the mob in New York City, and they assured his uncle that Lyle was no longer in danger, or his brother.
And that was the end of your contact in 1989 with Mr. Lyle Menendez?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I believe you indicated you did other shopping. What kind of shopping did you do with him aside from homes and vehicles?
We went clothes shopping. He bought suits and shoes, shirts, ties. We went shopping for tennis equipment, tennis rackets, sports sneakers, and outerwear.
Now, when you first met Lyle Menendez, was that at the Princeton Hyatt or was that at another hotel?
That was at another hotel,
And what's the name of the other hotel?
the Nassau Inn.
Okay, and is that a hotel inside the Princeton area?
Yes, ma'am.
When you first met him at the the Nassau Inn, did you actually go into his room?
Yes,
And did you accompany him when he checked out of the hotel and left?
yes.
Did he leave anything behind in his room when you left?
Yes, he did. He left a couple pairs of boots, some shoes, a jacket, shirts. There was a drawer open. There was undergarments left in there.
Did you make any comment to Mr. Menendez about leaving these things behind?
Yes, I asked him, I says, shouldn't we pick this stuff up? You want me to pick it up, gather it? He says, no. He says, leave everything. He says, I don't want anything to remind me. He says, I want to buy new stuff.
Okay. And so it was after that you went on these shopping expeditions, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you went shopping for clothes and tennis equipment and things like that, how did he purchase these items?
With credit cards.
Okay, were you able to ascertain whose credit cards they were?
No.
All right. Did you ever see any of those credit cards refused?
Yes.
Okay. In conjunction with that, did you ever take Mr. Lyle Menendez anywhere to get more money?
Yes.
And did Mr. Lyle Menendez tell you where he wanted to go and why?
Yes.
Okay, what happened there?
Lyle said that he needed more money and he was going to visit his Uncle Carlos. We went there twice, I believe, and both times Lyle said it was to obtain money.
Okay. And did you actually accompany him inside of the house to get the money, or did you wait?
I waited outside.
And when he came back, did he ever indicate on either of the two occasions that he had been successful in getting money?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Now, did Lyle Menendez ever tell you directly what had happened to his parents?
He said that they were killed by shotguns while they were watching TV in their home in Beverly Hills.
All right. And when was it in your relationship with him that he told you this? Was it the first day, the second?
I believe it was the very first day.
All right.
Because I wanted to know exactly what what I was looking at.
Were you concerned about your personal safety?
A little bit, yes.
When you went to look at the Porsche and you went to the patio homes, could you describe his demeanor for me?
He was normal. Him and Glenn were laughing and talking and joking. There was no. He didn't look upset.
Did you ever see him cry?
No, ma'am.
Now, as a police officer and
Oh, no. Okay.
in your 18 years, had you ever seen people who had been the victims of crimes or witnesses who were aggrieved?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he appear to be aggrieved to you?
No, ma'am.
When he was purchasing these items, did he appear unhappy?
No, not at all.
Okay. Subject to the court's order, I have no further questions at this time.
All right, prosecution.
Good morning,
Cross-examination.
Mr. Wenskowski.
Good morning, sir.
I want to pinpoint, if we could, the time period that we're talking about. I think you said you first met Lyle Menendez on August 28th or 29th.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right?
Yes, sir.
And where did you first meet him, if you recall?
At the Nassau Inn. Yes, at the Nassau Inn.
Were you dispatched there by your boss who sent you out there, and then you met Lyle in person?
Yes.
And when was the last time you saw him in person?
In person, I believe it was September the 4th or 5th. And that was at the Princeton Hyatt Hotel.
Okay, so, and that was the last time you ever saw him in person up until today,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes.
So you're with him in total for a period of about 7 or 8 days.
Yes, sir.
And I think you said also that during that 7 or 8 day period, you were away from the scene, away from him for at least a day, maybe a couple of days.
A day and a half, I believe.
And during that day and a half, your boss, Dennis Kelly, took over for you.
Yes, sir.
You never met Erik Menendez?
No, sir.
Was it during that day and a half period when you were off that your boss and your partner, John, met up with Erik Menendez and took him somewhere? If you know.
I believe my boss contacted another private investigator in New York City, and they met and they went to the U.S. Open, I think.
At some point during that 7 or 8 day period, did Lyle indicate to you that he was worried about his little brother?
Yes, he did.
And what was the context of that conversation?
Lyle said that he was concerned about his little brother that out here in California at the time, and his brother wasn't taking this seriously, what had happened to his parents.
Did it appear to you, just based on his demeanor, that he was seriously concerned about his brother?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think you testified that although you only knew Lyle Menendez for this 7 or 8 day period, that he, in fact, was consulting you about decisions in his life, correct?
That's correct, sir.
And that was something that stuck out in your mind. Isn't that true?
Yes.
In other words, you were with him on various trips that you've described, and in each instance, he would ask for your advice as to whether you thought it was good for him to make a particular purchase.
Yes,
Is that
sir, at
correct?
times, yes.
And those were the words he used. He said to you, "Do you think this would be good for me?"
I wanted, at several times he said that to me, yes.
And that extended even to such minor items as clothing that he was purchasing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You'd be in a store with him, and instead of making the decision for himself, he would turn to you and ask whether you thought it was good for him that he was making a particular purchase.
Well, he he lined up some shoes and suits and ties and shirts, and he asked me if this would look good on him. Do I like the way this looks? And things of that nature.
And this is from a person that you knew less than 2 weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
That seemed unusual to you, did it not?
Yes, sir.
And I think you also mentioned that at some point in time, he in fact mentioned to you that you were some sort of a father figure.
He said that I reminded him a lot of his dad. I was about the same age, and I think my hair was a little darker at the time. And yes, he did.
Can you give me a little bit more of what that conversation was in terms of where it took place and what you were talking about before that statement came up about you being a father figure to him?
That was, I believe, a day or two right before we stopped Bodyguard and Lyle. We were at the Princeton Hyatt. We were having lunch downstairs. And that's when he said, he thanked me. He says, "Rich, I want to thank you." He says, you stood by me and you helped me out a lot. He says, and thank you, he says.
Was he sincere when he told you that?
Yes, he
Thank
was.
you? Did he seem emotional as he related that to you? I don't mean he wasn't crying, breaking down, but did he seem like it was something that he meant as he told you that?
Yes, he did. Yes, it was something he meant.
And did you in general have a good relationship with him during that 1 week period of time?
Yes, we did.
Now, is it true that Lyle, never mentioned to you the death of his parents? That was a subject that was never talked about.
No, it wasn't. We never discussed it.
Never said anything about that at all, did he?
No.
And you mentioned a conversation that you had with him about a computer. Is that right?
Yes.
Did he know you were a police officer or a former police officer?
Yeah, I think I did tell him. Yeah.
And yet he openly talked to you about the fact that he was going to California to take care of some problem relating to a computer.
Yes, the will, I believe he said.
And when he got back, he told you that everything was fine, words to that effect, correct?
Yeah, he said everything worked out, everything was fine.
Did he ever say to you, hey, don't mention to anybody that we had this discussion about a
No.
will or a computer?
No,
Made
sir.
no attempt to influence you in any way, not to reveal that to whoever you choose to reveal it to, correct?
No, sir.
And other than the brief mention that you've already told us about, did he say anything else about a will or a computer?
No, sir, he did not.
You mentioned that these purchases he made were made with credit cards, is that right?
Yes.
Did he have a lot of cash that he was throwing around?
He didn't have a lot of cash. No, he didn't.
And the credit card purchases, you said at one point the credit cards were refused, is that right?
Yes, we were at a clothing store, and I think he went to 2 or 3 credit cards before one was taken.
And you also indicated that when he didn't have the money, he would go to his Uncle Carlos to get more for whatever it was he was buying,
Well,
correct?
not that I had knowledge that he didn't have any more money. He would tell me, Rich, we're going to my Uncle Carlos' house tonight. It was usually at night. That's when we went there, twice at night. And he says he was going to try to go get some more money.
Now, as one of the things he said, you said although he didn't mention anything about the death of his parents, he told you this story about the mob, correct?
Yes, he did.
And he also said something about being in fear
Yes.
for his life. What did he say about that?
He told me that the way his parents were killed, that they were going to come after him and his brother.
And did he in fact seem fearful to you?
He was concerned, yes. He seemed concerned. Enough that at the time that I took it very, very seriously.
And he seemed paranoid during a certain period that you were with him?
There's
No.
call for a psychological conclusion on the part of the witness.
Objection sustained, the answer is straight.
Did he seem to you to be genuinely fearful as during the period of time that you were with him?
No, sir. On the contrary, he would jump out of the limousine before we even would stop and go running into stores. And several times he'd walk away, and we would say, "Wow, wait a minute! Let us go out of the store first." And yeah, he wasn't fearful. No.
And do you remember describing to the detectives from Beverly Hills when they asked you about this that, in your opinion, he seemed to be paranoid when you first met him?
When I first met him, yes.
What did you mean by that, he was paranoid? I realize you're not a psychiatrist, but what did that mean to you when you said that?
Well, in the first day or two, he would come out of the building or dwelling that we were at and look around and just seem nervous the first day or two.
Now, was it also true that aside from Lyle, you were receiving information from other people that people were following you, for instance?
Objection calls for hearsay, Your Honor.
This goes to a state of mind. It's non-hearsay,
Irrelevant.
Whose state of mind?
the witnesses.
Objection sustained.
Did you ever have a conversation with the limo driver about the security precautions that you were taking in relation to Lyle Menendez?
Yes.
And you indicated that there were certain reasons you had for carrying a gun and getting a bulletproof vest, correct?
Yes.
In relation to those reasons, did the limo driver at some point indicate to you that he thought someone was following you?
Yes, he did. He mentioned something about the FBI, or he was informed by his office that he thought that the FBI was following Lyle or the limousine.
Your Honor, I'd ask that be limited only to his state of mind and not the truth of the matter of service.
No objection to
All
that?
right, that last answer is not received for the truth of what was contained in it. There wasn't any truth to the fact the FBI was doing any following, just it's received to show that this witness received that information and what, if anything, it had to do with his state of mind, the witness's state of mind.
At some point in time, did you take Lyle
I wonder
Menendez
if the
and
jury
Glenn
even was
Stevens to
paying
New
attention to
York
that
City?
admonition.
And did Lyle and Glenn ask you to take them to a restaurant?
No, I didn't take him to no restaurant. We took him to the U.S. Open.
And that was the only trip you made with
Yes, sir.
Glenn Stevens and Lyle Menendez to New York City, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, this conversation you said that took place about the gun that was in the hotel room at the Hyatt,
Yes, we were dressing for dinner one night,
and you said that was after he came back from
California.
California. And you were in your bedroom and Lyle came in, is that correct?
Yes,
And at that time, you had that brief conversation about whether you could get rifling off your gun, which was a pistol, correct?
yes, sir.
And he asked you about the shotgun. And was Glenn Stevens present during that conversation?
I don't recall. I don't know whether Glenn was in the room or not.
Right.
I really don't.
That's a conversation which you did not mention to the detectives when they first talked to you about the case. Isn't that true?
I don't know whether it was the first meeting or the second meeting I had with the Beverly Hills Police Department, but it was mentioned to him.
Right. You first met them around September of 1989.
I don't know if it was that early. I don't know if it was in September, sir.
September 19th, 1989. Do you remember being interviewed by Detective Zoller?
Yes, yes.
And do you think you mentioned that conversation at that time?
I don't recall.
Did you also have a second conversation with Detective Zoller on February 27th, 1990?
Yes,
And that was a situation where Detective Zoller came to your place of business and took you to Lyle Menendez's restaurant?
yes, sir.
And how long were you with Detective Zoller on that occasion?
Couple hours.
During any of that period of time, do you think you mentioned this incident about the discussion about the gun?
I don't remember when I told him, sir.
And do you remember that you were flown out here by the prosecution to testify at the grand jury proceeding?
Yes, sir.
That was in 1992.
Yes, sir.
And isn't it true that that's the first time that you mentioned that conversation?
No.
You had mentioned it in your interviews before with Detective Zoller.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Has the prosecution treated you pretty well in this case?
Yes, sir.
Have they paid all your expenses?
Your objection irrelevant.
Some bias, interest, or motive?
Be a little more specific when you talk about expenses, what you mean?
Sure. Has the prosecution paid for your travel expenses to come out here?
Yes, sir.
Have they put you up in a nice hotel?
Yes, sir.
Did they put you up in a nice hotel when you were out here for your grand jury testimony?
Yes, sir.
Did Detective Zoller also show you around the town a little bit?
Yes, he showed us his police department.
Did you do anything with him after hours?
I believe we had a drink or two, yes.
And you and Glenn Stevens and Detective Zoller had a drink or two?
I don't know if Glenn was with us or not.
Did
Yeah, he must have been. He must have been.
And did Detective Zoller take you and Glenn Stevens to a topless bar here in Los
Uh-oh.
Angeles?
Oh, I don't remember that, sir. I would remember that.
You would have remembered that. All right. And you don't remember that, but you remember going out with him and Glenn Stevens for some drinks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Can you withdraw?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so it sounds like they didn't take him to a topless bar because he says he would have remembered
I
that.
believe you indicated in cross-examination that Lyle Menendez consulted you about various purchases he wanted to make. Did you ever talk to him about the money he was spending?
No, ma'am. He never indicated to me he indicated to me he had money, and that's why he wanted to buy new items.
Now, I believe that you were also asked in cross-examination that Lyle Menendez mentioned that he was going to Los Angeles to do something with a will and a computer. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he ever indicate to you that he was going to erase the will in case it disinherited him?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, nothing.
Anything else?
Did he also indicate to you that the reason he was buying these clothing items was because he didn't have any clothes since he was leaving his clothes in the Nassau Inn?
Yes, he did. He said he left a lot of items back in California, and he left a lot of items in the Nassau Inn, and he wanted to buy all new stuff.
And you said, I believe, that when you drew that to his attention that he was leaving items in the room, he made a statement to you along the lines of, I don't want anything to remind me. Do you remember that
Yes, sir.
testimony? Did he say what he was referring to there?
No, I gathered he didn't want anything to remind him of maybe some of the clothes his parents bought him or to that effect. I was led to believe that he wanted to not recall or not have any understanding or feelings of what had occurred with his parents.
You're not going to start that speculation on part of the witness.
Well, the objection could have been made earlier, but the objection is sustained and the answer is stricken.
The entire
The
answer?
entire answer is stricken. You can ask the question again, but I believe the answer included entire speculation and conclusion on the part of the witness.
Could I have the reporter reread the
Yeah.
question? And then could you re-answer the question, please, without the speculation?
Just say yes or no. I believe the question called for that.
Question, did he say what he was referring to there?
Let's put it in context.
Question, and you said, I believe that when you drew that to his attention that he was leaving items in the room, he made a statement to you along the lines of, I don't want anything to remind me. Do you remember that testimony? Answer yes. Question, did he say what he was referring to there?
No,
And was he in a serious mood when he made that statement to you?
no,
Did you ask any follow-up questions when he made that statement?
no.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's not it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll excuse you until 1:45. There are some matters that we have to yet finish discussing here. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't look at any of the news coverage, obviously, and don't form any opinions about it. And you're excused until 1:45. And you can report back to the courtroom at that time. And we'll ask that the witness remain here.
Okay, so the jury has been
At the
excused.
time that you made this telephone call, did you have police officer status in New Jersey?
No, ma'am.
Right. And was it your decision then to tape record the phone call?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it your understanding in New Jersey that a private citizen can tape record their own phone calls?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And it was not suggested to you by Detective Zoller that you should do that?
Not at all, no.
Right. Why did you tape record it?
Because of the circumstances surrounding the new developments in the case. I was informed by Detective Zola that Lyle and his brother were becoming strong suspects in the murders.
And was that on February the 27th of 1990 that you were informed by Detective Zoller of that?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that when you and Detective Zoller visited a restaurant in Princeton purportedly belonging to Lyle Menendez?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions of this witness at this time.
Mr. Wenskowski, you mentioned that you received information from somebody else that Lyle had called you, correct?
Yes,
And that was Mr. Kelly, your boss?
yes.
And in fact, he had tape recorded the conversation with Lyle Menendez in which Lyle had called for you. Isn't that true?
I don't know. I don't know that, sir.
Well, didn't you listen to the tape recording in which your voice is on a tape which has been edited and the complete tape shows Lyle Menendez calling Dennis Kelly about 5 minutes before you came in and called him back?
I don't recall listening to that tape.
Your Honor, counsel, is there a stipulation that the complete tape that you've edited includes a tape recorded conversation from Dennis Kelly?
Yes, the tape that I have in my hand has both segments you're referring to, but I also did not play this for the witness.
Right. And if the tape recording was made by Dennis Kelly, as was indicated there, you don't know the circumstances under which he made the recording, correct?
No, sir, I don't.
The tape recording equipment was already set up when you came in and returned the call. Isn't that true?
I don't believe so. I called him from my own phone in my office.
And did you use the same tape that, a tape that Dennis Kelly gave to you to record the conversation?
Yes, sir.
And did you know that there was already something on that tape that was being used?
I don't recall. I don't remember.
Are you saying that after you were out to lunch, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you came back, are you saying that Dennis Kelly never mentioned to you that Lyle Menendez had called and he had tape recorded the call?
He told me that Lyle had called and that I should call Lyle back.
And he never mentioned that he had tape recorded the call?
He might have, because maybe that's why I tape recorded mine also.
And do you know under what circumstances he had tape recorded the first call?
No, sir.
Now, did you, before you called Lyle Menendez, get on the phone to Detective Zoller?
I must have, yes.
And how long of a conversation did you have with him?
Not long, a minute or two, just to inform that Lyle had called me.
Why were you calling at that point to inform him of the fact that Lyle had called you?
Well, I know that there was a police investigation going on concerning Lyle, and I wanted to, basically, being a police officer, I didn't want to hurt or jeopardize the case that was taking place.
And did Detective Zoller indicate to you that an arrest was going to occur very shortly?
No, he did not.
What did he indicate to you?
He indicated for me to call Lyle and see what Lyle wanted.
And is it your testimony that there was absolutely no discussion between the investigating officer on the case and you as to how you were going to memorialize this conversation?
That's correct. The officer never told me to tape record the conversation.
And in fact, you had no discussion whatsoever about that topic, correct?
No, I don't believe so.
And so the entire conversation was you called Detective Zoller and said, Lyle just called me. And he said, why don't you call him back, correct?
Yes.
And did he tell you that he was a suspect at that point?
No. No.
And the only thing he said was call him back.
Call him back.
And you then tape recorded the telephone conversation?
Yes, sir.
And what'd you do with the tape recording at that point?
I turned it over to my superior, Dennis Kelly.
And what did he do with it, if you know?
I don't know what he did with it, sir. I believe he sent it out to Detective Zoller.
Right away?
I don't know, sir. I don't know what the time frame might be.
Do you know how he knew to send it out to Detective Zoller?
No, sir.
Is that what you were going to do with the recording? Was that the purpose in making it?
Yes.
In other words, to memorialize the conversation as possible use as evidence against Lyle Menendez.
Well, I wouldn't say use against him. Use how the detective seen fit, for or against.
Did you think that you were aiding the Beverly Hills Police Department in their investigation at that point by making that tape recording?
Aiding? No, I felt that I was assisting them in some manner.
Did Detective Zoller in your prior conversations with him prior to this telephone conversation indicate to you that if you had any contact with Lyle Menendez, you should be on the lookout for anything that he might say that might be suspicious?
No, sir.
There was no discussion at all about that?
No.
You spent about 2 hours with him on the 27th of February
With who, sir?
with Detective Zoller?
Yes, sir.
And during that entire time you were with him, there was no discussion between the two of you as to what you should do if Lyle Menendez called you?
No, there was no discussion.
None whatsoever?
No, not that I recall, no.
And Detective Zoller never asked you to, in any way, memorialize your conversations with Lyle Menendez, correct?
That's correct.
Something you did all on your own?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, did Detective Zoller tell you what kind of questions to talk to Lyle Menendez about?
No, ma'am.
And in the office where you worked, did you have tape recording equipment readily available for the purpose of tape recording phone calls?
Yes, ma'am.
Had you done it before in your employment at DB Kelly?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it an unusual occurrence for you to tape record a phone call?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Nothing further.
What was your understanding as far as New Jersey law as whether or not it was lawful to do that, tape record a phone call?
It was my understanding it was lawful. Yes.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, do you have that tape?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to play it so I can hear it?
Ooh, we're going to play it.
Is there any objection to the witness listening to it as well? I have it queued for proper place. Does the court have the transcript?
Yes.
I think it helps. I will stipulate that the court reporter needs not transcribe this, Your Honor.
So stipulated?
Yes, sir.
Another microphone on a boombox.
want us to go with them? I don't know. I got their number. They wanted to give a call. No, that's all right. You don't have any idea where I am now. Let's see on the way there. No, they just said, you come with us. We're going to take a ride to Princeton. We jumped in the car, and next thing I know, I was at Mr. Buffalo's. Is that the name of it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And, I really asked my manager there if he was really done or was protected or something like that. He was nothing to do anything about that. Jeez, not in front of me. I didn't hear him say anything like that. Okay. So they weren't aware of any problem that might require your guys' help? Yeah. Okay. That's strange, huh? Why did you guys come down? Any idea? I have no idea. They called and they wanted to speak with the gentleman at bodyguard here. I took the call, and the next thing I know, they were knocking on our office door. And I said, "Come on, take a ride with us." And they did say, "Oh, well, I'll call you," because we were asking them questions, you know, and they wouldn't answer anything. The other day they said, how Lyle calls if you see him or talk with him. Okay. What are you up to? Doing the same old thing, working and everything. Yeah, how you doing, guys? I'm doing pretty well. I'll be back in New Jersey soon. I'll have to see you now. When I get out there, I give you a call. There's a couple of things I can discuss. Can't really discuss all the phone right now. Okay, well, I'll definitely make it out there. I just want to make sure there's no immediate problem. Seems to be any, at least right now. That's good. Okay. Yeah, all right, Richie. Thanks for returning the call. No, listen, give me a call when you come back and we'll talk. Okay. Okay? Good deal. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'll be honest, I couldn't understand most of that.
Any further that you want to offer in this hearing?
No, Your Honor.
Well, I would like to offer the testimony of Mr. Kelly, since there appears to be the distinct possibility that Mr. Kelly was told by someone to make this tape recording. And I'd also like access to the phone records of this agency to see whether in fact the phone conversation took place with Detective Zoll. As I indicate to the court, the entire tape recording consists of a first section which has been omitted from the portion the court heard, in which Mr. Kelly, the boss of the agency, is tape recording the conversation. So it appears, at least there's reason for me to believe, that Mr. Kelly was told by someone to make this tape recording.
Regardless of that, the witness indicated he made this particular tape recording of his own volition, and no one told him to do that. So what his boss did in relationship to another recording that is not being played doesn't have anything to do with what this witness did, unless you're attacking his credibility as to the honesty of his statements here.
It's not a credibility attack, but I thought the witness was saying maybe the reason he recorded it was because Dennis Kelly told him to. And my point is that Dennis Kelly was in turn told by police agencies to record the conversation. Then this witness is merely acting at the direction of his boss, who in turn is acting at the direction of law enforcement.
Okay.
I think that would bring within the subsection C provision of New Jersey law.
All right.
I don't think that was the testimony. I think
Let me ask the witness, why did you tape record the conversation?
Honestly, Your Honor, because I used to be a police officer. I know that the investigation was being conducted with Lyle, and I wanted to assist the Beverly Hills Police Department with background.
Okay, did Mr. Kelly tell you to tape record this conversation?
No.
All right. Anything else?
Could I just follow up?
Sure.
Did you say in cross-examination that maybe that was the reason you tape recorded it?
Yes, sir.
You did say that?
Yes.
What was the reason?
That the reason you might have tape recorded the conversation was because Dennis Kelly may have told you to do so?
No, I really couldn't. Dennis didn't tell me to do it. I did it on my own.
I brought to your attention the fact that he had tape recorded the first part of the telephone conversation, correct?
Well, I didn't have any knowledge of that.
Didn't I ask you whether one possibility was whether Dennis Kelly had told you to tape record it? And
Yes,
did
you
you
did.
say maybe that's why I tape recorded it?
Yes.
That was your testimony?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's all.
All right, we'll take unless you have some further questioning, we'll take a recess until 1:30 and proceed at that time with the hearing in relationship to Mr. Rand, and other than a continuation potentially of Mr. Wenskowski's testimony. Okay, court's still in session, please.
Yeah.
Then you're ready with
Judge
Mr. Stevens, is that
getting
right?
Yes,
tired.
Your Honor.
And after Mr. Stevens,
Amanda Adams.
and she testifies before both juries.
Correct. And then Wesley Gross was the handwriting examiner, and he testified before both juries, should we get to him. And I'm not going to call Detective Lenihan for the refusal today because I don't think we'll get to him.
Okay,
Because we have to litigate that.
all right. And so we do have some testimony this afternoon that both juries will hear.
If we get to it.
All right. And then what is the schedule for tomorrow?
Good question.
And then with regard to Mr. Stevens, he still has a few issues to resolve out of the presence of the court.
Okay,
I'm wondering if he really did get to maybe another this
well, then you'll just have to wonder until 4:30 and see whether or not we get to it, because we'll need you here all afternoon.
Oh, no, I think he did.
Yeah, so-
How long will Amanda Adams' testimony take?
I don't know how long your testimony is, but I have very few questions. I don't know how long your direct.
I don't think it will take that long. Maybe we should put her on next.
Well, if you have something, the other jury will be back until 2:00. If you have something that you could put on for both juries, and then we can excuse that jury for the rest of the day, that's fine. But my question still relates to tomorrow, so that we can give some guidance to the jurors as to when to return.
Okay.
We'll have to finish with the handwriting.
Okay. So I think that this is probably a good place to cut things off here. So we saw some testimony. We saw some behind the scenes without the presence of the jury. And yeah, we heard from Donovan Goudreau, Robert Rand, very, very short bit. It sounds like he's going to be brought back to testify. And there's just a question of the extent of his testimony. Same thing with Glenn Stevens. I think he also is supposed to come back for actual testimony. This was outside the presence of the jury, I believe. And then Richard Wenskowski, we heard from. Okay. Fascinating stuff so far. And I think we're going to be hearing from these guys, half of these guys, in the next episode of this. So thank you to everyone for joining me today through this whole journey. We've been through 7 episodes at this point. I love the fact that you guys are so interested in watching this. And I love the fact that you guys are in the chat, engaging and all this kind of great stuff. So thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you for being in the chat. Thank you for the super chats and whatnot. Sandra Ramirez, once again, for buying like 20 memberships for other people today. So kind of you, as always. And of course, thanks to the mods for helping to usher the conversation in the chat here as well. So, all right. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video.